Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bids and Purchases Committee. Item number 1 is the call to order, which is what I just did. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the August 4th, 2025 meeting.
Mr.
Approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. We got any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Public comments. If anybody has any comments would like to let us know, you can step up to the podium. We'll give you a few minutes. Seeing none. I love this committee. Nobody ever wants to come talk to us.
We're such nice people, too.
All right, item number 4 is award of the contract for the design of sidewalk and pedestrian advisory lane improvements.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Before we vote on it, do you want to, you're looking at me like you want to say something.
No, I do. You
No,
want
I'd
me
like to get the summary of it.
Okay, sure. So the Bids and Purchases Committee previously approved the establishment of agreements with consultants to perform various types of transportation, engineering, and development services on an on-call basis. This project is for engineering design services to incorporate new sidewalks along 4 existing roads within the town and to modify another existing road to develop a micromobility advisory lane. The roadways included in this project are Wakendaw Boulevard, Erkman Drive, Rifle Range Road, Oak Haven Boulevard, and Shem Drive to Benson Drive. All project sites are located in the town of Mount Pleasant and within public right-of-way. The project will include surveys, design, permitting, construction, cost estimating, bidding assistance, and construction administration. Staff have determined that the above project will require services from an on-call consultant, Bowman Consulting Group Limited, to perform the necessary engineering design work for this project. Staff therefore recommend contracting with Bowman Consulting Group Limited in the amount of $189,050 to perform the work for this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have several questions. The first one is on Erkman Drive sidewalk. The property owner that's doing the swimming pool was asked to help with improvements that would be needed for the swimming pool and the traffic and pedestrians coming there. Are they contributing to any of this on Erkman Drive?
Good morning, committee, and yes, sir, Mr. Chapman. They are certainly, per the town ordinance, improving sidewalk on their property as is required. Of course, there's transportation impact fees that are paid that are indirectly used towards this capital maintenance project for Erkman, which will extend the sidewalk from the other side of Erkman Drive up to the existing sidewalk at Coleman near the Toast commercial site there.
But are they contributing to the added sidewalk?
They are installing about 100 feet of new sidewalk on their property in sort of the L shape along King Street and along Erkman. This particular project is on the other side of Erkman and is fully funded from the town.
Okay, so it's on the other side and they're doing their side.
Correct. Yes, sir. In our investigation into the alignment for this particular section, due to the open section drainage on the side of the proposed pool, it was more cost efficient and easier to construct on the other side and connect to existing sidewalk again up by the commercial site on Coleman.
Right. What is the advisory lane on Wakendaw Road?
Yes, sir. So you probably have heard of our micromobility program and advisory bike and pedestrian lanes. We recently completed a project on Ben Marino Way out towards the Carolina Park Recreation Complex. So it is utilizing the existing pavement cross section to dedicate via striping and signage pedestrian and bicycle facilities in areas that are otherwise very difficult or cost prohibitive to construct typical 5-foot sidewalks.
And this is the one, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is the road that services Trident Academy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a lot of after school sports and recreation activities that occur there. So I have noticed a lot of pedestrians walking on the street there.
Could you explain what that is going to be? Because there's no room on the road to do it. Are we widening this sidewalk there?
No, sir. So we are utilizing again that advisory bike and pedestrian lane striping and signage. So we did a previous study to confirm that this roadway is eligible for that type of treatment, which is a lower speed, lower volume roadway where pedestrians, as they do currently, walk within the roadway. This just designates a striping area that they're allowed to be in. So when there are two opposing vehicles, the vehicles yield to each other if there's a pedestrian in conflict. Otherwise, they use the roadway as normal. They're allowed to be within that designated area. Very similar to Pitt Street Bridge, like we just completed that project, and then about a year ago, the Deer Creek Trail micromobility project was similar in that respect.
Well, I ride a bicycle over there a lot. There's not enough room on the existing pavement for bicycles, pedestrians to compete with the automobiles and the traffic going to that school back and forth. Does not appear to be similar to Pitt Street Bridge. I would suggest that we take a look at the width of right-of-way instead of doing striping and putting bicycles and pedestrians competing with the automobiles back and forth. And I realize that we blocked off part of the road so you can only get to the school on one side. Same thing is coming the other way. But having used that a lot, I would certainly like for you to look at the width of the right-of-way to see if you might be able to add some pavement for the pedestrians and bicycles.
Yes, sir. We can certainly investigate that.
And on the Rifle Range Road sidewalk, are we doing anything for repaving of Rifle Range Road? Because it's in terrible condition, based on a lot of the work that was done by the water and wastewater group.
So this particular project that's proposed is sidewalk only along those limits of the Mount Pleasant Waterworks project, from essentially the Target shopping center down to the neighborhood and existing sidewalk. Our staff has done extensive work to develop a graphical map to share with the DOT on areas of concern along Rifle Range specifically, similar to how we did with Long Point about 6 months ago, which resulted in the resurfacing of that roadway. So we will continue to push the DOT, but through this project that is sidewalk only.
Yeah, this is great. I know I suggested going from Seaside down to get to the connector, and this does that. Thank you very much for working with Water Range to do that.
So
Okay. Anything further?
No.
So we got a motion?
I think we have.
Already do,
yes.
yeah.
All right, motion second. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Award of contract for the 2025 resurfacing project.
Yes, sir. Staff requested bids from qualified and interested bidders to resurface or patch town roads in multiple locations. The neighborhoods with streets being resurfaced are listed here. The work includes traffic control, milling, surface preparation, full depth patching, asphalt resurfacing, striping, etc. Approximately 11 miles of road will be paved and 2,900 square yards of road patched. This project is scheduled to be completed within 270 calendar days from the issuance of the notice to proceed. Staff received 2 bids and determined that Sanders Brothers Construction Company, Inc. was the lowest, most responsive, and responsible bidder. Staff therefore recommend awarding the contract to Sanders Brothers Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $3,458,000 $960.75 to perform this resurfacing and patching work.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it would help to have the specific streets, not just the neighborhoods where this is going to be done. Save having to call when we get questions from the neighborhoods about when a particular street is going to be repaved.
We can get you that information.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
No, I did want to note that it's. Can you repeat the dollar amount one more time?
Sure, it's $3,458,960.75.
Just wanted to note that this is a representative of the town investing in its roadways, and that's a higher dollar figure than we've put into repaving in quite some time. So I think that's with the aging roads that are under the town's purview. I think it's great that we're investing more money into redoing the surfaces and maintaining those roadways.
I agree, and I like the fact that you can get people out on bikes and riding now instead of having to get in the car every time. That's really important as well. All right, so we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6 is adjourned. So we started off good this morning. Let's hope everybody else can follow our lead.
Let me call to order the September 2nd meeting of the Flood Resilience Committee. And I appreciate everybody being here on this wonderful fall-like morning. The weather is great. Just a couple of things before we get started. This is my first real public meeting since the passing of my father on August 12th. And I want to thank everybody for their outpouring of support. I feel it, my family feels it, and we thank you very much for that. And I also want to mention we had, a foot of rain in 1 week, Eric, I think, at least. And we had public services staff out there cleaning drains and making sure water was flowing. And I know our police were out there handling some things. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but resilience matters, and we're seeing it more often. And if anybody happened to be downtown during all this in Charleston, and realize the level of resilience that they have to work with, it's a big job. So I'm glad that we stay ahead of it as much as we can, given our situation in Mount Pleasant. But thank you to all our staff who handle that so well.
And Mayor, that's
Yes.
why we have to keep our drainage ditches clean
Exactly.
continuously, not just once a year, but continuously. So to thank Public Services for doing that too.
It was wonderful. Item 2 is approval of the minutes from the June 30th and the August 4th meetings.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. Item 3 is public comments. If you're here to make a public comment, please come forward, give your name and address in 2.5 minutes, please. Anyone for public comments? All right, we will close public comments. Item 4 is a recap of South Carolina 7 events. Yes.
Well, sir, we thought since you're an integral part of those events that you might want to comment first.
Be glad to. Wanted to see the picture. I want to thank our staff for all that they have done. We, again, were a statewide sponsor for the South Carolina 7 event. It is to bring attention to conservation and resiliency issues. And out of South Carolina 7, the South Carolina Resilience Conference has sprung. The third one will be this coming April in Florence, South Carolina. They're taking it all around the state. And that is also connected to the South Carolina Floodwaters Commission, which our friend, who is also the head of DNR, Tom Mulliken, headed that and still does. So we had quite a Mount Pleasant time here. We had the Bridge Walk, which was officially as you see these pictures, the largest event in the history of South Carolina 7. So I want to thank our staff. I want to thank Mount Pleasant Waterworks, who turned out. The Cooper River Bridge Run was there. I know I'm leaving somebody out, but it was a big turnout for lots of organizations showing their support for what South Carolina 7 is all about. And then we had the groundbreaking for our citizen-driven pollinator garden. You see that picture in the bottom left hand that will be right out there. And we're on our way to a goal of 1,000 pollinator gardens across Mount Pleasant. And the Green Neighborhoods group has agreed, a private citizens group has agreed to work on that inventory for us. And so we will get there hopefully sooner rather than later. We had, in the bottom right, you see we had Lieutenant Governor Pam Evett here. We had Director of Natural Resources and founder of SC7, Tom Mulliken, there. And the lady on the right is Michelle McCollum with the South Carolina National Heritage Corridor. They are also the people, and out of this relationship, that got us that $150,000 grant for the Praise House Trail portion of Mount Pleasant Way. So lots of good things coming of this, and it was also that Friday, the march on the bridge, not the march, but the walk on the bridge was Thursday. We were treated to a day at Boone Hall Plantation, and Corey Austin showed us how you pull sweetgrass, how you identify what's good for grass for basket making, the grass for portion of basket making. We know there's more in it than sweetgrass. and gave us a little bit of the history of it and told us what it's like to actually be a basket maker in this day and age. And it was very informative, and we had about 35 or 40 people there for that. I don't know if any council members had anything to add. I know y'all were at many, if not all, of the events. Ms. Hyatt, I know you were there for the groundbreaking, which was great, and you're all behind that as well. And Councilman Rambo and I got to attend a private event at Boone Hall that Friday night, of which Waterworks was a sponsor, because the town was a sponsor of SC7 overall, which sort of spent our budget. But it was a good meeting of people from around some of the DNR board and other leaders in conservation in the Low Country. So it was a great time, and I appreciate you being there as well. Did I leave anything out? All right. Well, thank y'all very much, and we look forward to having another big SC7 event here next year, and our new pollinator garden will be doing its thing then as well. Item 5 is recognition of staff for their efforts to contain a hazardous material spill.
I'm gonna have it's loud. Sorry. I'm gonna have Kevin do these next two agenda items.
Thank you, Brad. It's an honor and a privilege to recognize some of the unsung heroes we have at staff. Here recently, we had one of our solid waste trucks leaked about 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid in one of Walkendall Lakes. Thank you. And they self-reported, which that's what they should do, and I commend them for self-reporting the problem instantaneously. We have something called a spill team, and they responded automatically. The head of the spill team is Claire O'Loughlin. She's been doing this for a number of years now. She's actually head of our MS4 program, which is our water quality program. Part of her team is Cody Robinette. We have Claire here in the green jacket, and Cody Robinette over there, and Jim and Dan. I don't know if they made it, but we also have 30 people from Public Service Department 2 as well, and they responded. And as you see in the picture, they had to wait out there in Walkendall to keep that hydraulic fluid from getting downstream. Those are absorption pads that they were using, and they estimated about 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid were removed. Also, I'd like to add that last year, it was not really recognized for them, but they actually removed 100 gallons of grease that was spilled in the drainage system that was about to get into Shem Creek. So Claire heads that up. She doesn't get recognized very often. Her and Cody, they do great work, and yeah, it was an effort by Public Service Department and our EDS, and yeah, we're just glad to have them. Want to let y'all know the great work that they do.
It's fantastic. Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it. On a less hazardous scale, I've been on a litter pickup with Cody and Claire, and y'all do a great job dealing with the public and dealing with the businesses that, the litter is around and everything. So good job in all realms. Thank y'all very much. Item 6 is presentation of Rimley's Point Micro Stormwater Drainage Project.
Good morning, Flood Resilience Committee. I'm Marissa Noble, Project Engineer in the Engineering and Development Services Department. So if you recall, I presented the first installment of our micro stormwater series, the Tall Pine Drainage Improvements, a few months ago that completed construction the beginning of this year. So this will be the second project, the Rimley's Point Micro Stormwater Drainage Project. This is the project sign I presented previously. This is currently on site right now. We did swap out the QR code with a new QR code that links to a video on our Mount Pleasant Green Facebook page. So if you want to check out more details for that, I would suggest scanning the QR code. So if you recall the mission statement, this is to identify and address long-standing localized stormwater issues that have persisted and been unresolved by maintenance through targeted and practical small-scale solutions. So these are projects that have persisted over years, sometimes decades, and they're small enough that they don't qualify as a CIP project. So before I get into the project details, I wanted to talk a little bit about the status and the project cost. We are currently under contract with IPW Construction Group, and we do have our pre-construction meeting today, so we are kicking off construction soon. The total project cost for this is around $275,000. That includes the IPW contract as well as survey that we acquired a few months ago. And similar to the Tall Pine project, we did all of the design in-house. All of the construction drawings, the stormwater modeling, and the permitting was done in-house. So that saved us $50,000 to $75,000, just like on the Tall Pine project. And this is also being funded by the town LID and micro stormwater account. So here's an aerial view of the project. The actual construction boundary is shown in yellow. This is at the intersection of 4th Street and 6th Avenue. So the construction area is small, but if you look at the purple and blue shading, that is the actual drainage basin. It is about 50 acres that is draining down to this small area that has existing infrastructure. It's just currently undersized. So we're going to be increasing the capacity, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Mathis Ferry Road is at an elevation of around 28 or 29, and then the project site is around an elevation of 9 to 12. So you can see this is it's a pretty major issue. The picture on the left is looking up 6th Avenue, and this is a resident sent these in. That is their home that is near the intersection. The picture on the right is actually where the existing culvert is at the intersection of 4th Street and 6th Avenue. So there's an existing 18-inch there. And as you can see, it's completely underwater because it's undersized, and it just can't handle the capacity of some of the storms that we're getting. So these are some pictures another resident sent in. You can see this is also flooding their yard all the way up to their home as well as the roadway. So I'm going to close in on the construction drawing in a minute. I just want to give an overall view and then talk about what we're doing for the entire project. So we're going to be installing new drainage inlets in a pipe run along 6th Avenue. That'll cross under 6th Avenue. That's shown by the purple, which I'll show a close-up in the next slide. Then we're going to be restoring and extending the roadside ditches along 4th Street and 6th Avenue. That's shown by the pink contours. And then we're going to be repaving a portion of 6th Avenue as well as the intersection. That's the dark shaded area along the roadway. The objective of that is to crown the roadway. It currently sheet flows from Plan North to Plan South, which is where those homes that I just showed are located. And then to finish the project, we're going to be restoring the landscape with some native plantings and sod. So here's a close-up of that pipe area. I have circled in green where we're going to be installing 2 new inlets. These are type 9 inlets, so you see those around Rimley's Point right now. They've got the 4 open throats on each side. These have a significantly more inlet capacity than a typical grate inlet. So we're hoping to capture the water upstream of that existing culvert that's at the intersection and get it into the system rather than into yards or backing up into the ditches and then into the street. And then you can see here where we've got the pavement section where we're going to repave the road, and we've got spot shots crowning the road. And then this is the ditch section. The picture on the left here, that's what it looks like today. That's along 4th Street. So we're going to deepen that a little bit and bring the ditch around the corner along 6th Avenue to capture the water from our new pipe system. And then at the end of the project, we're going to be stabilizing this ditch with an erosion control blanket and planting it with a native seed mixture, a southeastern seed mixture. The erosion control blanket will stabilize the ditch until the seed mixture can take root. And then we're going to be doing sod over top of the pipe sections. And that is pretty much the entire project. I'm working with our communications department on getting some pictures taken and video during construction. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Mr. Rambo.
What is an erosion control blanket?
It's basically either hay or some type of something to stabilize. Like I know you've seen like a silt sock out there, and the material that's in that, it's basically going to lay inside of the ditch and be tacked in, and so that the soil doesn't erode into the roadway until the plants can take root.
Okay, understood.
There.
Yes.
Now that the water coming down 6th Avenue will get past this intersection. I presume it's all going eventually to Cooper River. Is that correct?
So when it gets into this system that crosses the road, this ditch goes to another pipe that eventually gets to the marsh on, I think that's 3rd Street or 5th Avenue. It actually turns onto 5th Avenue and then it outfalls by somebody's house into the marsh, which that's an existing system out there. So we're just increasing the capacity of the existing system.
So we're increasing the capacity here at 6th and 4th. Are we increasing the capacity further down as well?
That's not currently the plan. I think right now the biggest problem is that 18-inch pipe is choking the system. Once it goes through this ditch system, the pipe that it outfalls to is a 24-inch pipe.
Okay.
So I think 2 18s is equivalent to about a 26-inch pipe.
Right. And that 24-inch gets to the marsh.
Yes. Yeah, all the way.
One. Thank you.
And that was a part of the modeling that she mentioned that we, before we do any of this, we make sure it works downstream of the outfall.
Right.
Yeah, I think the ultimate pipe that goes into the marsh, I think that's actually bigger than 24, but it's 24 past here all the way or bigger.
Thank you.
So again, will you have to tear up any streets? Will there be any detours, temporary detours, or anything for this?
Yes, there will be. I think I'm going to talk to the contractor about that today when we have the pre-con, but I'm giving them 14 working days. I don't think they're going to need nearly that many. But I think what they'll probably do is shut down 4th Street to the whatever intersection is back behind it and route people around it for however long it takes them to cut in that pipe and then pave the street.
Okay. And when do you anticipate that starting?
I'm hoping that we get a notice to proceed established today, and then hopefully that will be this month, probably closer to the end of this month.
I think that's terrific.
Yeah.
Do we have any of these other micro projects going or in the pipeline? I don't mean going like,
Yeah.
in the planning stage or the identification stage, because it's a great program.
We have a few ideas. We definitely have some ideas that we'll probably talk about internally, and hopefully those will be presented to you soon.
That's great. Any other questions about
Yes,
that?
sir.
Thank you, and maybe update us at our next monthly meeting.
Absolutely. Yep.
That would be great.
Thanks.
Ms. Marson, did you have anything to add to that?
Afraid to speak in this thing. No, sir. Other than to really recognize that, most of our design projects are on-call contracts. They're the very large contract, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
These smaller projects done in-house really keep us, in touch with, the design effort at the local level, and it keeps our staff really sharp.
Yep.
They're able to get out in the field and produce solutions. So this is the kind of an ancillary benefit of us saving money is we really have a lot of local knowledge that we can bring to the project.
And I kind of like it because it's similar in cost and effect to what happened, what our police did by getting the traffic response vehicles in that while other big plans and big capital projects are in the works, this is something that you can do. You can act quickly. It's a very small budget, but a big result. So
Yes,
I
sir.
really applaud the department for doing that.
Thank
One
you.
other question is this partially funded, did I understand, by our stormwater fees?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Probably, since it's in our CMP project. But I can find out for sure. But I suspect it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Good to know. Okay. Well, that's great. And let's put that on the agenda for next month as well.
Yes, sir.
All right. Our last item, number 7, would be to adjourn. If there's nothing further to come before this committee, we will stand adjourned.
Our Health, Recreation, and Events Committee meeting for Tuesday, September 2nd. Next item is approval of minutes from the August 4th meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is public comment. If you'd like to address the committee, we like to have a name and address and 2.5 minutes.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Smith. I live at 410 Royal Avenue, and I'm here to speak about number 5, off-leash dog hours and locations. Not really sure exactly what this means, but up front, I am a dog person. I live near Edwards Park, and for many years, this passive and historical park, which was so designated by Town Council in March of 2024, has been used by all. It is hard to use now with all the holes that are on the ground. We have 3 parks over here. Spites and Edwards are passive. I'm not sure about Alhambra. Spites was donated to the town, and Edwards Park was planned as a passive park after Hugo when the fire and police station was torn down. I know this because I was one of the few on the commission who worked with the community to decide what was wanted, and never was this to be only for one group. It was to be for all. Why, after so many years, are we now enforcing the leash law in these parks? It has worked fine. The ordinance has been in effect for many years. At Edwards in the afternoon, there are many cars parked under the live oaks. I'm a tree person, being on the original tree commission. Under the live oaks is now a dirt pit. I am proud of the fact we are a tree city, and yet we allow this parking. Where are the no parking signs? We have a paved lot on Bank Street that can be used for the parking. Mainly, Edwards Park is not a dog park, should never be fenced. This is a park for our whole community, for all to feel welcome. We have a brand new dog park and one on Rifle Range. I would be curious as to how well used these dog parks are. Does anyone have that information? Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm at 313 Royal. So I helped to preserve Edwards Park the last time we did this and the time before that. Just to let you know, last time we had nearly 800 people, voters, who signed a petition asking that there be no change to Edwards Park. And I see you have on the agenda the leash, off-leash hours. We don't want that. And the reason we don't want that is because having a leash, off-leash hours is essentially turning the park into a dog park. It's already been corroded, potholes, all these things, people driving under the right-of-way. I've asked the town for no parking signs along Royal. The town refuses to do that. The park is eroded because of the parking, because of people coming to the park, not picking up their dog poop, not using the paved parking. We do not want any kind of off-leash hours, because then you're just officially calling it a dog park without calling it a dog park. Putting up any kind of sign is like an advertisement. Here's a dog park and here's the off-leash hours. The other question is enforcement. I mean, if you are going to enforce the hours, and you're going to have a lot of people angry that they might be getting a $150 ticket. And then if you say, well, we're not going to enforce the hours, well, then why are you? It's a show. I mean, it's pretend. So we appreciate no changes to Edwards Park. Like I said, 800 citizens, voters, already said they don't want change. We'll say it again. We'll do it as many times as possible. But the only thing we want at the park is no parking signs along Royal, because the soil has been eroded. Cars park under the right-of-way, and they don't use the paved parking lot. And so now you have all dirt along Royal Avenue, and it looks awful. And now the dirt is all the way into the park. We're for dogs. We're for people. You could go there with your dog. That's fine, but it's for people as well. Kids throw baseball. Parents want to be there. People want to have a picnic. But we're not for anything that further puts it into the range of an official dog park.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name's Clay Duffy. I live at 530 Reed Street. And I've lived in that house there right across from Spikes Field for 33 years. And for the most part of those years, I've had 2 dogs that ran in that field and played with my kids without incident. But before I go on, one thing I'd like to mention is that the town of Mount Pleasant does an excellent job of keeping that Spikes Field in tip-top condition. They mow it, they pick up the trash, they do a wonderful job, and it does not have holes in it, and it does not have dog mess all over it. People are pretty respectful of that. But I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for doing such a good job of keeping that field in the condition that it's been in for the 30 years I've been living there. I don't know exactly what happened, but a few months ago we started seeing animal control and a couple of police sitting in the field for hours and trying to, I guess, catch people with their dogs off leash or whatever. But it's changed the atmosphere there. You got to understand that this field has been used by families. Saw a family out there yesterday, late in the afternoon with their dog and their kids kicking the ball, having a good time. They're not hurting anybody. So I'm not quite sure why we've had animal control enforcing the leash law or at least warning people to abide by the leash law here recently. I wish you could just go back to the way it was, which was we don't feel like we're in a police state. And it's changed the atmosphere. This is a community park, has always been, and it's used for a lot of different reasons. Organized sports, people come over there and practice, fly fishing. There's all kind of things going on that park every day, and I hate to see it change in terms of the attitude of how people feel about that park. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Julie Allison. I live at 500 Pitt Street, and I'm here out of concern for Edwards Park. I think Edwards Park has been a target for a dog park ever since the plan to upgrade Alhambra Hall, which we know was part of the plan. I'm here to voice my objection to any idea of Edwards Park becoming a dog park. Any signage of Edwards Park will be the same as declaring it a dog park. Edwards Park is a historic park, and town has recently recognized it as such. So please leave that open space to be enjoyed by all, and do not make it a dog park.
Good morning. I'm Janet Newham. I live at 510 Pitt Street in the Old Village, and I'm part of a group of neighbors in the Old Village who are dedicated to preserving Edwards Park and honoring its history. And I'm not sure that you know its history, so just a quick about that. People didn't know. In the 1700s, before the Revolutionary War, this area was carved out among 50 acres to be the common of Greenwich Village, which was the first village of all the few that came together to create Mount Pleasant. So it was the town common then. In the 1840s, when the ferry ran back and forth to Charleston, that was the area, town common, where people would gather who were taking, I've seen old pictures, they're taking their goats and their donkeys and their goods and their vegetables and all across by ferry to Charleston to sell, and that's where they gathered. There's old maps too that show the houses that are along Ferry Street button up to the park right now. They were livestock pens and stables because that's what they needed when the ferry was running back and forth. In 1949 to 1989, it was the heart of Mount Pleasant. It was town hall, fire station, police station. In 89, Hugo took all of that away. So after all that's cleaned up, the town dedicated that area to James Edwards. That's where the Edwards Park comes from. James B. Edwards was our state senator. He was the governor for a while, the head of MUSC, Secretary of Energy. So that space also honors him. So I think whatever we do moving forward needs to honor that history and honor him and not fly in the face of all of that. In March of 2024, Town Council honored that space, dedicated that space with a resolution to create it as a historic spot in Mount Pleasant. So it has that base also. I feel the best way to honor the history of the place and to honor Dr. Edwards is to keep it just as it is, a passive park that's open for all people to use and enjoy. I've seen families playing catch and frisbee like at Spites too, yoga groups, people on the benches just reading and enjoying it, and the dogs too. I want you to know that what we've heard from all of the neighbors, we're fine with the dogs there. We're fine with the dogs being off leash there. Just let them do that. And to Barbara's point, it's not a new ordinance, it's an old ordinance that, I don't know, it just wasn't enforced before, so can we go back to that? Let them enjoy it. Don't call it, but two, don't call it a dog park, please, and don't put a signage on it. Am I out of time? Oh, poo. Okay, I'll go this way. So, oh, that's yours. Okay, there you go. So don't put a sign up and don't put fencing up. And don't call it a dog park. And don't advertise it as a dog park either. Okay, thank you.
How do you really feel? My name's Carol Holman. I live on Parsonage Woods Lane up in Park West. And just a general question. I'm a member of the board of directors of the East Cooper Arts Advocate. We've been speaking to you before. We noticed that you're moving forward with a temporary arts facility, the venue. Are there any, will be in any foreseeable future be able to see some numbers, financial numbers about what the final vision of this is? I know you've set aside some money to do some renovations. We're a little unclear on what I guess would like, if it's available or as it becomes available, more information about what the future is for this town. Are you thinking in terms of that as a temporary facility? I know it's been referred to as a temporary facility before. Is there any vision yet that has coalesced about a more permanent facility, what that might involve, how we might be able to help? You can tell that I'm just kind of floundering around here asking for information, and if you could just, tell me what do you know and where can we find it? Thank you. But I don't have one.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, thank you all. Next item is employee years of service.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask Ms. Nicole Harvey to come up here for just a quick second. So it is my pleasure to be able to recognize Nicole Harvey today for her 15 years of service to the town of Mount Pleasant and specifically the Recreation Department. Nicole's been the driving force behind the organization and implementation of the numerous festivals and special events across town. Her creativity, passion, and organization have been instrumental in making sure our special events are fun, entertaining, and appealing to everyone. She has been a supportive leader, a friendly coworker, and a true mentor throughout her time here at the Rec Department. Her staff is truly a team because of her, and their hard work has certainly paid off for the residents of the town. Please join me in congratulating Nicole Harvey for 15 years of exceptional service with the town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is discussion and possible action regarding the designation of locations for off-leash dog hours. This item has come up because of our recent completion at Alhambra Hall. A lot of people have expressed broken hearts for not being able to have their dogs there anymore off leash, but after spending millions of dollars to renovate and restore plantings and everything, it's just not an ideal place for that activity any longer. And if we're going to be enforcing leash laws there, I'm assuming we're going to need to do it all over town unless we change the ordinance and designate areas where it might be allowed. That way it's easier to monitor. This isn't really about making another dog park or fencing anything, but just a conversation about areas that have already been used and if we're going to continue to allow that to happen. A lot of people feel like it's a quality of life thing for them. They really enjoy the camaraderie with neighbors, and they really feel like they'd love to continue it if we could work out a reasonable situation. I know other communities do allow off-leash hours, at the beach. You can do that, but it's very limited. So just wanted to have the conversation here with us, reach out to the community for ideas and staff, and then maybe bring it back next month to see if we would be ready to make any sort of decision about it. But I at least wanted to have the conversation in fairness to the residents. So, yes, Mr. Santos.
Well, I'd like to say that I've heard everybody, and I agree. People love to take their dogs out and exercise them. Unfortunately, we have good dog owners and bad dog owners, and the bad ones don't pick up after them. And so, you're running out there playing catch with your child, and he's stepping in dog poop, things like that. That's got to stop. So I think we ought to, in my opinion, bring it back to committee, and let's do some further research on where we can have a dog park that's open to the folks and where they can't be. Because, the last thing you need to do, like Alhambra Hall, on the other side towards the water, I see people out there with their kids, throwing the ball and stuff, and then, you've got dog poop out there as well. So we just got to find a happy median to where the dog lovers have a place where they can go with their dogs, and then there's places where they can't. And I think once we do that and the citizens understand where they can go when they can't, I think it'll be a lot better.
Thank you. Mr. Rambo, do you have anything to add?
I agree with the comments that were made today, and that this did come up a year or two ago, and the people in the Old Village, Old Mount Pleasant area made it very clear that, and that's why we made Edwards Park a historic park, was for it not to become a dog park. I think what's hard from a role standpoint is that we as council, we set the policy, we set the ordinance. We don't control enforcement. And so that's a decision of that side of the government. I don't see a way to for us to officially say that there's a law on the books and, but we're not going to enforce it in a certain place, or we're going to enforce it in another place. I don't really see that as being something that we can really get involved in, although I do understand that. And so I don't know. I think the beach is just a different type of location that I don't know that we have a similar area where it would be appropriate. And unfortunately, everyone thinks that, their dog or my dog or whatever is not going to do something, but unfortunately it happens where they attack a smaller dog or a child or whatever. And that's why pretty much every municipality and county has the leash laws on the books. So I don't really see a way around it other than like what Mr. Santos said, is there somewhere else other than Edwards Park that could be designated a dog park? And to me would need to be fenced. But.
We did some years ago have an area behind Waterworks where people could bring their dogs as well. I don't know that that's been used. Is it being used?
Yes, it's being used, and there's a dog park back there.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure because I haven't heard about it lately.
Did staff have anything to add? Any ideas?
So I think the big thing is we certainly can identify some areas, but I think when it's going to come down to is you're going to have to live with what you allow. And so either it's going to be fenced and you have a controlled area where an incident with a dog is probably less likely. If it's not fenced, those instances could become more likely. And the second problem you may have at any facility where dogs are free to run would be the maintenance. As one of the ladies mentioned, Edwards Park has become a little chopped up due to the dogs running. So you just kind of have to weigh what you want to allow, what you want to live with. We have 3 dog parks. Well, there's 4 in the town of Mount Pleasant. 1 is owned by the county. So we have areas, but again, we certainly can identify some parks that or some properties that would be amendable to this type of situation. But I think you're going to have probably the same narrative if you've turned Park X into this instead of Edwards. Those people that live by Park X are going to have the same comments of the folks that live near Edwards. So I'll certainly bring back some identifying properties that we can discuss at the next meeting. And also, I do know there are other rec departments along the area that do have some off-leash laws. I'll contact them, see if they have any of the same issues or problems that we may be projecting here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
and,
Mr.
and I'm not sure how many people know that we've got 2 dog parks underneath the bridge that we just opened up.
Brand new.
One for big dogs and one for little dogs. And so
Yes, sir.
every time I go over there, I don't ever see any dogs in those parks. So anyhow, just so people know that there are 2 dog parks over there, and the dogs, the ones that I do see there are having a ball, chasing balls and stuff like that. So, okay.
Okay.
Can
Oh, yes, Mr.
I ask one follow-up that's kind of related, but it came up. The parking at Edwards Park, so there is a paved parking area. And so is the parking that's happening along Royal, is that like in the right of way? Is that legal parking in the right of way? Or
Illegal. It's illegal because it goes into the park. They park under the oaks.
Yeah.
I've asked the town for no parking signs and they have ignored me 3 or 4 times.
So I'll just ask if town staff, if y'all could research that issue and kind
Yes,
of
sir.
see what's going on there, that would be great.
And there are no parking signs on the other side of Edwards Park on Pitt. So
Okay.
I'm just asking for the same signs to be on Royal.
I know for Edwards Park, we had a lot of neighbors that weren't interested in us turning it into a official dog park with fencing and everything. So this is not about that kind of conversation, and it would be more about finding an ideal spot that people are already using and trying not to change, the neighborhood and the environment any more than we have to. So that's what brought this up, is trying to have people maintain part of what they're used to doing and enjoying if we can. So I'd like to see it come back next month with more information, and I'd want more public outreach. There may be other areas up in the Park West area that people are using without issues, maybe towards the back of the property. So I'd just like to learn about what the public thinks before we move forward. Okay. Anything else? All right. Next item is program and projects update.
Okay, I will keep it brief so we'll stay on time. Just one project update. We did get our variance request approved for the Rifle Range Road Gym, which allows us a couple extra feet taller to meet NCAA volleyball standards, so that way we can have any type of volleyball, basketball in that facility. So that did get approved. And as you can see, the numbers we provided, our fall numbers are looking fantastic. Our soccer numbers are really going higher than normal, and our senior center memberships are continue to go up. So people are enjoying our programs and events, and we do have 2 large soccer tournaments coming up this month. So if you're going to be in the Patriots Point or Carolina Park areas next weekend and the following weekend, it will be rather busy with plenty of teams from out of town coming in to enjoy our facilities, enjoy our town. So that's really all I have, unless y'all have questions, comments, or concerns.
Anything else? Mr. Rambo? Okay. All right. Thank you. If we have nothing else, then we'll adjourn.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the HR committee for Tuesday, September 2nd. The first agenda item is a call to order. Second is the approval of minutes from the August 4th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes 3-0. Next, we have public comments. Do we have any public comments? 2.5 minutes to come forward. All right. Excellent. I'm excited. I'm getting a lot of public comments. So, good morning. State your name and address, please. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Schnipke. I live at 185 Maceo Way here in Mount Pleasant. I've been attending these committee meetings for several years, actually longer than any of you have served on town council. I don't recall there's ever been an agenda item regarding a volunteer serving on a board or commission being conducted in executive session. I've seen the town administrator's contracts and evaluations held in ES, and I understand why that's done. But the public has an opportunity at that time to give input if they choose to, because of this transparency. This is not that. I've spoken to the town attorney in the past asking why any business is conducted in executive session. One explanation that he gave was to discuss legal strategy since he represents the town. I can understand that. This is not that. I can't imagine the circumstances that would require removal of anyone on a board or commission unless the conduct broke the law. If your HR director or her subordinates yelled at me in the grocery store, I can't imagine that you would consider terminating her for cause because of her conduct. If I then asked you to terminate her, would you? Does the contact merit removal? There's no transparency here, so we can't give any public comment regarding what actions, if any, should occur in an incident that we're not aware of. I've been around long enough to recall a sitting council member making disparaging comments to his constituents, and he wasn't removed.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Going once, going twice. Okay. Next agenda item is the review of employee wage study. I believe we are partially through, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good.
Good. How are y'all?
Great. Thank you.
So, as you know, there is a wage study in the budget for this year. Last month, I provided a brief overview of that wage study, including the goals of it, which is really the town's overall competitiveness within the region in recruitment, as well as retention and organizational resilience. We also discussed the scope of it. It is looking at incentives as well as wages, and the peer group that was included in the study is listed below. These are organizations that are similarly sized and groups that we directly compete with for employees. So today I have some more information for you. We've made considerable progress. And we'll start with public safety. That's really where the vast majority of the study lies. This study is not one that has something for everyone. The consultant focused in on specific positions that needed to be addressed, and we focused on those. So starting with public safety, the fire and police, the approach is really focused on incentives. The consultant found that our incentives were lagging behind the market. Both the educational incentives and the special certification, specialized training incentives. So by improving the educational incentives, we'll make the town more competitive, we'll improve our workforce, and improve our succession planning. And the incentives for the certification and specialized training incentivizes the workers, the employees, to get these additional areas of training to broaden and strengthen their training and experience. Experience. It improves the workforce individually as well as overall, and it's a great recruitment tool as well as retention.
Can I ask a question, please? Oh, go ahead. No.
I was going to ask, can you please explain these numbers and what I'm really looking at? Is that just mean like if you are a firefighter with the city of Charleston and you obtain an associate's degree, you have $3,688 added to your salary that's ongoing
Yes,
every year.
exactly.
Okay, and so like police department, for instance, a bachelor's degree is $4,430 that gets added. I thought we required a bachelor's degree anyway for starting officers. Is that not true?
We require an associate's degree.
We require an associate's degree.
Yes, and then we have an incentive for the bachelor's degree.
So does the city of Charleston, for instance, I mean, do they have their positions listed as like a salary schedule that's like after 2 years it's this amount, 5 years it's this amount? Because I feel like ours are more, I don't know, performance based or in some.
So the city of Charleston uses a step system. So it's they do have it laid out where if you have a high school degree, it's this much, and then associates, bachelor's, master's, PhD, and then they have for probationary, police officer, senior police officer. So
Do they have years of experience?
yes,
on
so
that
the
as
step
well?
system
Yeah.
uses a combination of training as well as years of experience, and you automatically progress through that system. So
Correct.
we
And
don't,
we don't use a step system.
we don't
correct?
currently have a
And that's
step
why I'm
system.
like, I don't know that it's comparing apples to apples in that regard.
So what we were comparing to is their entry. So the base pay for a police officer when they first start, because you're right. After that, it can vary according to their steps. So we looked at what an officer walking in the door would make there versus here. So there they would get $430 for a bachelor's, and here currently they would get 1,518.
Okay,
So-
so do we have that same data for like your average police officer after 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and how that compares as well? Or are we just looking entry level?
So we're looking entry level. It's really hard as time goes on because they can take career paths, and they'll get 3%. They can get that up to 3 times. So if they go that direction, that's going to vastly vary their pay from the person that doesn't, and they can get other.
In our system, you mean?
Correct.
Whereas in city of Charleston, everyone's going to be getting that same step increase regardless of performance.
So I don't know that they do the career incentives the same way that we do that career path in the beginning. Ours can do it within the first couple 2-3 years, where you can get a 3%, a 3%, and a 3%. So within those first couple of years, you can get a 9% increase. I would have to defer to Chief to. I don't know if that's how the city does it.
So, no, their career track, their path, their system is a little bit different than ours in that it, if you look at they have a form they use for recruiting and hiring, and it lays everything out all the way through the upper ranks. And if you participate in their career development, this is where it'll be. If you don't, this is kind of the natural stepping grade, okay? But then there's the opportunities for the other additional incentives, and it lays it out from officer all the way through, also by degree. So I'm happy to provide you all with that form so that you can see what that looks like.
Okay, that would be good. Thank you.
Mr. Tinky?
A related question. Obviously, we're looking at wage and hour total compensation and want to make sure that we are really a beacon for the area as far as our incentives and total compensation. And wasn't it recently that we did a off-budget review in the last 2 to 3 years and made some significant changes? And when was that?
So we have, I believe, the last one where there were several positions addressed was in 2023 during COVID, I feel like there were a few of those where the market was moving quickly. So the last time we did a wage study with an outside consultant was completed in 2021, and that's done every 4 years. In between those 4 years, we take the opportunity internally to look at areas where we're having problems recruiting or retaining employees. And we've addressed a few positions along the way. So most recently, we addressed some engineers and other positions in EDS. We've looked at the procurement department. We've looked at waste management. So we've addressed different areas as the need and opportunity arises.
And based on the need and opportunity, that's what we're doing again today, recognizing that's important. I think it's also important to I think compensation and incentives for continuous learning is great. I think it's also important to sort of stack up total compensation, which would be the benefits that we may do better than others if we do, such as the wellness program, health benefits, etc., because it's the total package that gets people there. I think the others are maybe unique areas that I'd be interested in looking at, which might be a housing stipend, maybe transportation stipend. It could be different things that we would look at that would help based on the input from the customer, which is the employees themselves, as to what really motivates them. And we can see it in the retention numbers. I think anything that could incentivize retention and track that as a percentage and see that over time too, compared to the others, really indicates that we're doing a good job. And so I think for me, that's one thing I always look at. I mean, there's, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, there's some areas of employment like hospitality that are terrible. And there's jobs that are challenging, like police and fire. And so we want to make sure that we retain and have the retention there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if both chiefs want to, if you all could come up just real quick, because I do have a couple questions for you guys as well. But I believe just a couple things. I think on the one wage study, and Mr. Tinke, you weren't here. I believe the one wage study we did, that was really after kind of our entry level on a lot of positions is where we were behind. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so thank you. And then my question to you gentlemen is, and I did a ride along one time, ended up being like 11 hours. I thought it was going to be like 3. And you guys put me in a small car, by the way. It's very difficult on your back. I don't know how they do it every day. So they're commended for that. But one thing I found when I was on this ride along, where many of us, and maybe I'm old school, think that policing is handcuffs and a gun, right? And it is not even close. When I was on it, I don't know if I can say this, is one domestic violence call. There was 2 mental health calls. The other call was a gentleman, his wife wanted to get him arrested for being drunk. He was in his car. He wasn't driving. He was passed out in his pickup truck, and your officers did a very nice thing and took him to a hotel room. It was awesome to watch. There was no keys. The car wasn't running, the whole deal. As a matter of fact, the keys were in the grocery store, I think. Couldn't even find his keys. But what I found when I was on this run was your officers need to be quick. They basically are almost attorneys out there. I mean, they're covering the town's, making sure David's not too busy, and because they're going to be in a court of law, but nothing had to really do with the old school policing, so I guess my question to you gentlemen is, how important is education, and how important is it for retention as this incentive based, because this is incentive based increases? How important is that education for longevity and for them to do their jobs every day?
Okay, first, thank you, sir. Thanks for the question. Well, currently around 45% of our personnel have higher education degrees, from associates to master's degrees. And you're right, you're hitting on something that, you're talking about the police department, but in the fire service, it's the same thing. It's not just kind of your old school, running to a fire and going back to the fire station. We're advanced medical, and you know that for years. We've led the way in our medical provisions that we do. So we're hazmat, tech rescue, confined space, wildland, on top of just your standard fire department duties. And we've begun to really expect a lot out of our personnel beginning with this recruit school and laying this foundation of being well-rounded. We look at them as athletes on top of being intellectuals as well. So to answer your question and to remain competitive, I do believe that higher education is important. And we've started to see that shift in the fire service. I know police is a little bit ahead of us on that, but to attract these candidates, we're seeing a lot of young kids from the Wando High School, but even the Citadel College of Charleston, kids that want to stay in the area and serve the community that they've been in throughout college. And we're kind of starting to see that shift. So I do believe higher education and compensating them for that, one, draws them here, but two, keeps them here. And it continues to increase kind of the level of personnel that we have in our establishment.
Thank you.
So, in modern policing, it's incredibly important to have an educated police force. On our patch, the word knowledge exists, and I talk about this at every swearing in, the importance of being a lifelong learner. That includes in-service training. That also includes formal education and continuing to educate and learn and grow. It's part of our accreditation standards to pursue continual education. So it's incredibly important. These are the types of folks that we want, that are motivated to learn and have a better understanding of criminal justice, social order, peace maintenance, all of the things that go beyond just the traditional law enforcement. So very vital to our success.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, by the way, for them? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So y'all have jumped ahead of me a little bit with the chart, but it shows I guess our biggest competitors in the areas and how we rate against them currently, and how our proposed numbers would compare to them and the associated costs. So it's broken out by education, and that includes the associates, bachelor's, and master's. And then under that, it talks about certifications, and those are specialized trainings and or certifications that are specific to each group. So as Chief Mixon mentioned, the medical is very important to him, and the EMT and paramedic incentives are a big part of that number. There are other ones listed as well. He mentioned hazmat and the wildland and many others. And then the same with police. You can see the education incentive amount and then the certifications. And Chief Arnold, I know, had a specific interest in looking at SWAT and the field training officers. And there's other incentives as well, but those took the lead. So that summarizes the incentives. The consultant did also look at wages, and whereas previous studies had always really focused on the entry level position, we're now seeing in this study that we need to address at a higher level, and it's really where the positions transition from being hourly to salary, and we're seeing that in both fire and police. So we needed to address that transition where it goes, where you first entered the salaried from the hourly. And the way things are right now, there's a slight disincentive to do it, because while people may want to move up in the leadership, they have a very real possibility of losing money. They're not going to be hourly. They're not going to have overtime. So we don't want it to be discouraging in any way. So this is an opportunity for us to encourage them to take that next step up in leadership and not have to sacrifice pay for taking that step. So in the police department, that happens where people go from sergeant to lieutenant. So it's the lieutenants and higher that are salaried. And in fire, there's 3 battalion chiefs that are salaried. And the consultant recommended that those be reclassified to assistant chiefs at 1 grade higher level to address that concern. And then on the next slide, we look at the rest of the town. So the departments other than fire and police. And the consultant identified 14 positions that were being paid at greater than 15% below the market averages. And they include 25 positions that includes the 14 mentioned previously, that they recommended move to a higher grade level in the organization. And by doing that, we will align with the peers and maintain our own internal equity as well. A bulk of the positions identified include inspectors that are out in the field, and we're competing with other municipalities for these. A number of other positions were in IT, where we're competing with municipalities throughout the state as well as the private sector, and also selected mid to upper management positions, where again we're competing with throughout the state, with entities throughout the state, public and private. And the same thing that happened with police and fire, where we were previously focused on entry level and not necessarily looking higher up the chain. And the consultant recommended that we make these modifications by doing grade level adjustments with the accompanying pay change. And
I've got a question, sorry.
Yes.
When they wrap this up, will we have that complete list of every position on like an Excel sheet or something of the sort? Like, I mean, it says 25 positions, but will we have that complete breakdown?
So I have not seen they're still working on their
Right.
final report, but I can absolutely request that.
Okay. Like the full detail.
I would
Yes,
expect it to be
correct.
in there, but I'll request
Yeah.
it
All right.
specifically.
Thank you.
Sure.
And was Public Works part of that too, do we know? Or
I don't believe there were any public works positions. They were all looked at,
Okay.
but we very recently did the waste management
Right.
review. So those were in good shape. So here's a summary of the preliminary costs based on what we've discussed. And you can see the breakdown into the different departments, as well as the breakdown by the wages and incentives, with the biggest concentration being the incentives in police and fire. For the total there, all in of all departments, wages and incentives, approximately 1.5 million. And that is preliminary at this point.
when they say incentives, and obviously that's all wage-based incentives, right?
Yes.
Education wage-based incentives, basically.
Yes.
Is that a now thing? Meaning, is they're looking at everybody in their current degrees, and that they're not, or is this looking into the future on what people will be most likely taking? Does that make sense, or is that instant? Like,
So it's
this is-
looking at our current employees for the vacant positions. I guesstimated based on the ones that we already have. So, you know, maybe 6 of the 12 openings would have a bachelor's based on what we already see.
oh, okay, so you have guesstimated, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
But the overwhelming majority of it is based on the actual people in those roles.
Mr. Tinky?
I continue to be interested in retention on key positions. May not, because you know what they are. Don't have to get too granular. There's not problems in certain areas, but the ones that you know traditionally you have problems with, I'd be interested in that and how, when we do things like this, how that affects it. So, for example, we did an increase a couple of years ago, as we discussed earlier, and so how did that compare? And so how is that tracking, and is it really helping us? You know, and what are the and talking to the people that leave, exit interviews and whatever, what are the things that we learned from that to indicate what we need to do today? So those types of things would be important for me.
Yes. Yes, we have seen success with what we've implemented previously as far as incentives and wages. And I think the study is a good reflection of that, where we've focused on the entry level positions. We did not see that come up in this report. And a lot of the things that we have previously addressed did not come up. So that's reassuring.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I was just gonna talk about the next steps, which is really hearing from y'all, getting your guidance and input as we work through the remaining steps with the consultant to review and finalize. We would prepare for a special HR committee if that's needed, and prepare for town council consideration as well. And Mr. Tinky, you mentioned earlier housing stipend and other types of assistance. We're still looking at those kind of programs to see how else and where else we can help employees.
Thank you. Mr. Rambo, do you have anything else? Okay, excellent presentation. I think we have a little bit of time, and we're waiting for the final results from the study. I think once we have those final results, and once you have the finalized study, I think we can move, whether that's a special committee meeting or whatever that is. But any date on that yet?
We should be getting it by the end of this week, so I'll
okay.
say 2 weeks to be safe.
Okay, excellent.
But very soon.
From your perspective, is there any sense of urgency on any particular positions and areas that we should be concerned about as far as retaining employees that we have today?
I think this report really, the recommendations we've gotten so far really align with where we have seen issues. You know, we talked about IT, for example, and that's one where we're competing with the rest of the world basically, and it continues to grow and continue to be of importance. So I think we've seen that when we're hiring and also losing people and having to rehire, and that is reflected in these recommendations here. So that's one where it really did hit home.
So y'all are dealing with some of these issues on a day-to-day basis anyhow, but we're looking at across the board changes.
Yes.
With this. Okay.
Yes. So the consultant looked at all of the positions in the town and really narrowed it down to these that needed to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you
for getting us up to date on that. All right. Next item on the agenda is executive session regarding personnel matters. Discussion of a personnel matter regarding the conduct of an individual serving on a town board. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are going into post-executive session. Committee may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. Therefore, we are now in executive session. Okay, we are back from executive session. No votes were cast. We're going to move forward with I'll make a motion for legal counsel to review circumstances discussed in executive session and to refer the matter to counsel for further review at the next council meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 3-0. And the next item on the agenda is to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Order the meeting of the Planning Committee. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 30th and August 4th meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move for approval, Madam Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 3, public comment. If you are here for public comment, please come to the podium. You will have 2.5 minutes. I'm setting my timer. Is there anyone? Yes.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Smith, 410 Royal Avenue. And I'm interested in number 5 and number 6, having to do with the demolitions and the rebuilds in older neighborhoods and the accessory structures in Old Mount Pleasant. I just don't want y'all to infringe on the property rights of longtime homeowners. We have homes and lots in Old Mount Pleasant, and at some point we may want to downsize. This would require us possibly to tear down or to add to an 800 square foot cement block home that we've owned for 30 years. If we don't do this, we plan for our daughters or granddaughters to use this to build. And I just don't want to put restrictions on individuals like us because they're not making any more land, as you know, over in the old part of Mount Pleasant. The second thing, I understand that people don't want an ADU that is built so close to their existing home or fence when they've lived there for many years. We have been in our home for 46 years. And in the past 5 years, we have had one built beside us and one behind us. And it's really not bothered us. ADUs need to be farther off the lot lines, though. And I feel that the town could help with privacy issues. And the way they could do this would be require ADUs to not have windows facing the adjoining property and not have the outside steps facing the adjoining property. Have it all facing their own. And this would be a huge help with our privacy, and it would be a very small change. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment?
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Gore. Gore is spelled Gore. I live at 308 6th Avenue. That's a settlement community. It's considered Scanlonville. One of the things that we have become aware of, because we are a welcoming community, we do not have an HOA, and there is a reason for that. But we would like the builders to be aware of the conditions. When I say conditions, I'm talking about let the area stay the way it is as far as how we have it to make it a completely Scanlonville area. You have to remember this area was here since 1870. This area was built and organized by a freed black man in 1868. He and 100 other men, women couldn't own property back then. That's another story. But listen, let's keep this settlement community in its original format. We're not afraid of change. We're not afraid of compromising. But let's have affordable housing in this area where our community is a very safe community. That's why everybody wants to come live here. So please take in consideration about the heights of building.
All right. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, public comment is now closed. Moving on to item 4A, Venning Road.
Good morning, Planning Committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning. This is a request to rezone 2 parcels. AB2 on Venning is a 0.98 acre site with frontage on Halls Pond, Venning Road, and Lacannon. There is currently a contractor's office on this site, and it's also served by a parking lot. And as far as the zoning makeup, predominantly a lot of this area is unincorporated in the county, but within the town, AB1 is the predominant zoning. And if we zoom out and look at this survey, the zoning inventory of this area, you see the amount of county, and 36% of this is area-wide business. So that gives you a general idea within the context of the area. So with this proposed rezoning to AB2, the question we should be asking is, what does the comprehensive plan say? And the community scale commercial designation on this property does allow for AB2 within the range of applicable zonings. So I know that we often talk about the comprehensive plan being a roadmap for us, and it has guardrails for us to operate within. And if that were the case, that would make our zoning map kind of a car navigational system, kind of a step-by-step, turn-by-turn manual on how you get to this destination. So it's kind of an analogy to kind of explain the distinction between the two. But as you answer these questions, and this is something with our new code update, we've got review criteria built in. You would ask, are there changing conditions in this area that would, I definitely recommend this rezoning, or are the uses that would be allowed, are those appropriate for this area? Is this rezoning consistent with the best management practices of planning? And then, upon answering those questions, you can go back to this and reroute, recalibrate, and determine what really is the applicable zoning district for this area. So just a little discussion on that and the analogy there. But ultimately, Planning Commission did recommend denial 8-1. And Michelle and I can answer any questions you might have on that. If you look in the bottom left corner, there's just topical supplementary information if you want to have any questions on that. Glad to touch on those. But glad to answer any questions you have.
Committee, Mr. Rambo.
Is the property currently in compliance with their current zoning? I see like boat storage.
That's a good question. So I'll actually go to the nature of the current request. So the code enforcement officer was going around town and inspecting sites, and this one it was flagged, and boat storage is currently occurring on the site illegally. And for that, you need AB2, special exception from the Board of Zoning Appeals and commercial site review. So that was something that came up and kind of is the catalyst for this request, to answer your question.
Is this site, has it been annexed into the town for a long time? And was this the use when it was originally annexed, or has that use changed? Do we know?
It has changed. 2009, it was annexed into the town, and that use has changed.
Okay, so it wasn't like it was annexed and miszoned.
Sure,
somehow.
sure. That we definitely looked through the records, and it was. If you look at old aerial images, it was not.
I move to recommend to full council denial of the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Mr. Chapman, you had your hand raised?
Well, my hand was raised to make the motion.
All right.
I think that was going to be my motion right off, even before we heard.
Okay. Ms. Hyatt.
So if this is denied, is this something they can go to BOZA about? Like a special use or anything? They just flat won't be able to do this under any circumstance.
The ultimatum is that they get AB2 zoning and go through the process, or they clear off the site.
Yeah, and Madam Chairman, this is an area that's somewhat in transition, but it's not on Highway 17. It's closer to residential along Venning Road, and that's why I felt that when it was coming in and becoming simply a storage yard, it didn't belong there.
All right. We have a motion and a second to recommend denial. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 4B, Beehive Road.
Thank you. This is an annex and zone of 2 parcels on the corner of Beehive and North Highway 17. In aggregate, we're talking about 1.36 acres. This is typically, you see this come along with, there's a catalyst that drives this request, and it's water and sewer. And since water and sewer is available to both of these parcels, it will be required to be annexed or denied annexation to use those Mount Pleasant Waterworks services. So I would be remiss if I did not bring up the existing zoning designation for this property. It is within the 10-mile historic district within the county. However, I know we've had discussions on these in the past. This does not present the challenges that the other properties we've had dealt with, and especially because we've now mirrored the county's moratorium. And so it definitely gives us protection on dealing with that. But furthermore, we did reach out to county staff and wanted to make sure that this annexation and zoning, if it did go through, that it would not be inconsistent with the plans that they have, because they're currently working on their overlay district for the 10-mile area. The public hearing will be held on September 8th for that. So we wanted to make sure that there's consistency there, and they concurred. It was consistent. In fact, they wanted to remove some of the intensity from this parcel fronting on Highway 17, and I'll kind of talk about that just quickly. So as you know, S3, which we have in the rear parcel, that's the town equivalent of CC. Community commercial, that's the town equivalent of AB2. And actually, right now, this site is permitted for 16 units an acre. So county staff realized that would not be appropriate in this area, and what we are what we have with CC would be more consistent with their plans and more expedient too than they're able to move forward with. So the CC zoning checks a couple boxes. It's consistent with the county plan, and it's also consistent with our comprehensive plan, especially with the moratorium in place, which would not exceed 4 lots. So that is all that staff has. Glad to answer any questions that y'all would have on this.
All right. Any questions from the committee or motion? Ms. Hyatt?
What did commission?
The unanimous recommendation of approval.
Right. Okay.
I move for approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval to full council and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 5, continued discussion and possible action regarding the heights of detached accessory structures.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this has kind of bounced around for discussion. Back in July, it was sent to the Planning Commission, and then we did a brief discussion on it last month, but of course wanted to bring it back now that we have a full quorum and kind of get some direction from the committee. So the commission had asked for some additional information, so I wanted to provide that to you all as well, so you can kind of see how they came to their recommendations to you all. They wanted some numbers. So we talked about detached accessory structures, so we went back and looked from January 23 to current. The entire town, you had a little over 370 total detached accessory structures. 38 of those were ADUs. And just keeping in mind that we do still have our building permit allocation in place, so that does allocate those ADU numbers. The other than ADUs, that encompassed everything. Detached garages, pavilions, outdoor kitchens, cabanas, we had greenhouses, so that kind of included anything else you could possibly think of. Just in the Old Village Historic District and that expanded area that's now the Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District, we had about 130 total detached accessory structures, and of those, 22 were ADUs. I also did, the commission wanted to look at what some other communities were doing, so we looked at how we compared to Wilmington and Savannah. And that kind of helped them frame their recommendation to you all. Just real briefly, Mount Pleasant, our requirements specifically for an ADU are that you're only allowed to have one per lot. You are subject to the 850 maximum square foot. You're also subject, any improvements you have in the old Mount Pleasant area are subject to that impervious surface coverage as well. You have a 6-foot side and rear property line. Either the principal, this is kind of unique, I think, to the town. Either the principal structure or the ADU must be owner occupied. So if I have an ADU, I have to live in one or the other. I have to live on that property though. And then occupancy of an ADU is limited to 3 persons. Wilmington was interesting. Their setbacks were 5-foot side and rear. They limit all detached accessory structures. You can only have 2 on your property. You can have 1 ADU. Pools aren't included. The gross total square footage of all your accessory buildings can't exceed 100% of the gross floor area of your primary structure. And what that means for your ADU is they allow a bigger size. So they allowed their ADUs to go up to 1,200 square feet, but in no case could it exceed 50% of your principal building structure. The height on that too, the height for Wilmington was, it could not exceed the height of your principal structure. So they didn't put a number on it. They just said it can't exceed your primary house. Savannah had a few similar things. Their ADUs were a little more controlled though. No more than 1 bedroom. They did have 25-foot height, but in no case could it be taller than the principal structure. It could not exceed 700 square feet, and they also had that percentage too, where it said your ADU can't be more than 700 square feet, but in no case can it be more than 40% of your principal building. And then interesting, and this is one of the recommendations that came out of the Planning Commission, was that any portion of an ADU over 15 feet in height, you had to move it back off the property lines. So after looking at all that and looking at the options, the Planning Commission decided to do the following. They wanted to treat the Old Village different than the rest of town. So they wanted to move it back to where detached accessory structures in the old village were maxed out at 20 feet, which is what they used to be instead of 25 feet. They also, with that, still wanted a 10-foot rear and side setback. And then all of the rest of town, they wanted to keep it at 25 feet height for all detached accessory structures, but they wanted to add in that caveat where if you're over 18 feet, you got to move it to meet the setbacks of your principal structure. So that would be a 10-foot side and rear setback. And they also wanted to keep the 850, but they wanted to add in that 40%. So you can go up to 850 square feet for a detached ADU, but in no case also can it be more than 40% of your principal building. So you kind of have another catch in there when it gets to the size. So that's what this looks like. I put it on a chart and I cut it up between and just I don't have a map in there, but I've cut it up between Old Village Historic District, the Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District, which is Old Mount Pleasant, plus a few of those neighborhoods across Coleman, and then the rest of town. And what it looks like is, with the proposed change, the Old Village would go from 25 feet down to 20 with an increased setback. This would be for all major detached accessory structures. So whether it's an ADU or a garage, room over garage. And then all the rest of town, they would stay at 25 feet. But any portion over 18 feet, you would have to move it 10 foot off your side and rear property line. And then they also wanted to add in the 40% and the size limit at 850. So this is what the Planning Commission has recommended for the committee and council to discuss and provide direction on.
Have any comments from the committee? Any thoughts? Ms. Hyatt?
I think when we started this conversation, we were interested in doing more to preserve our neighborhood preservation overlay district. So this is still just hyper focusing on the old village, which is basically only 2 streets, right, from Royal to the water. So I do like their recommendations, but I'm inclined to expand old village protections just into the neighborhood preservation overlay district. That's just my thoughts. That's where we've had the most complaints about the ADUs being close to the fence and tall and that sort of thing.
Okay,
in the established areas.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for going into this detail. It's really what we needed to do. My suggestion is going to be that in the neighborhood preservation overlay district, that you could have 25 feet, but in no case could the structure be taller than the existing building. In other words, if your house is 20 feet tall, that's what you got to have the ADU. Can't be taller than the existing building. But other than that, I like everything else they've done.
Mr. Rambo, do you have any thoughts? Okay, Ms. Hyatt, you had some more?
Now is that more restrictive than what we're doing in the Old Village Historic District? It's saying not higher than the principal structure. Is that more restrictive?
Not necessarily, because the Old Village is saying 20 feet max. And I think it already says that in the Old Village that it can't be taller than the principal structure.
Okay.
So we could carry that over. We could make sure we carry that over and then just add it to the neighborhood preservation overlay district or those older neighborhoods.
Okay.
Mr. Rambo?
Yeah, so I do agree. First thing I agree on is I don't think an accessory structure or an ADU should ever be taller than the principal building in any, like, all of it.
Right.
So that's my opinion on that. I don't know. I know we had a couple of cases where people had come from the Old Village Historic District that were, basically kind of saying, hey, I can put a room over a garage with a little extra feet, or I can add to the impervious surface and do an addition. And I know that's why we had changed it from the 20 to the 25 feet in the Old Village Historic District, which I'm actually okay with, as long as you have the 10. I don't see the need to reduce it to 20 feet and have the 10-foot side and rear setback. I think the side and rear setback makes that more tolerable. I think that's the main complaint that I've heard, is that those structures are just too close to the property line. So I think I'm good with what's been recommended, but I don't know if any of you guys have thoughts about leaving Old Village Historic at 25, as long as they have a 10-foot side and rear setback.
Mr. Rambo, I would like to add that for many years in the Old Village, it was 20 feet plus you couldn't exceed 1.5 story. That has been removed. So I think
am I getting those two issues confused? The
yeah,
1.5 story thing.
Yeah, and I think the commission was comfortable with the 20 feet because not having the 1.5 story, it would allow somebody to have a room over a garage.
Oh, okay.
So
the 1.5 story limit was
that
the
really
problem.
limited it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, then I take back what I said. Thank you for that background.
Yeah.
Ms. Hyatt, did you have
No,
more?
I was just going to, since he was speaking, ask him. So you agree with Mr. Chapman, though, about not taller than the principal structure?
I think that should be the rule everywhere. Yeah,
for all.
100%.
Sorry, I'm just clarifying his statement.
We just adopted the new code when?
May 1st.
So, and how long did we spend going through the code before we adopted the new code?
It took about 3 years. Yeah.
It's a long time. It's a long time, and we just implemented it in May and gave people certainty about what their property rights were. And I am concerned a little bit about reducing people's rights to do what they can on their property with the code that we just spent 3 years implementing. Mount Pleasant is not a cheap place to live, and if you have a home and you want your kids to live, maybe the way to do that is through an accessory structure and through an ADU. And we're already limiting it to like no more than 3 people in an ADU, and so my kids have a kid and then they have kid number 2 and I got to kick them out of their home, because they can't live there anymore. I think that I understand the concerns of the neighbors who want the status quo, but when those neighbors either decide to move on or decide that they want their kids to move there, don't they want that same opportunity to be able to provide that for themselves or for a renter to help make ends meet? I guess for me, if we add these rear and side setbacks, would people even be able to build an ADU anymore? Because with these additional setbacks, if their property is not large enough to accommodate these setbacks, would they be even able to build anything? So I think, we spent a long time on this new code, and I'm more comfortable with just leaving it the way that it is. But I understand that may not be the sentiment of Greater Council. So
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chairman.
Of course.
The motion is to recommend to council that we revise our zoning ordinance with what has been recommended by the Planning Commission, with the exception of change neighborhood preservation overlay district and the rest of the town, include the 25 feet, but in no case larger than the existing structure.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Just to clarify, for the Old Village Historic District, you would say you would keep the 20 feet, or would you move that back to 25?
Keep exactly what we did, or what they recommended.
Okay.
The only change would be the 25 feet
In neighborhood preservation and rest of
neighborhood
town.
preservation and overlay district and rest of town, but in no case shall the accessory dwelling be taller than the existing existing home.
Okay. All right. That's the motion. We have a second. We are in discussion. Is there any further discussion, Mr. Rambo?
What is the definition of building footprint? Is that like the roof line, or?
Yeah, so it's the building footprint would be, yeah, it would be any part of the structure.
Like so like would an uncovered porch be part of the building?
Yeah, it would be. So if you had a deck, a porch, anything that like that is going to be included in your footprint. You're talking about for
Well, this I'm confused
the
by adding
850.
the 40% thing.
Okay.
I'm confused where that's coming from and where that. Well, yeah, where did that number come from? I don't know.
Let me back up. The 850 is for conditioned space. So for an ADU, your maximum building footprint that is for conditioned. The 40% came from some recommendations from Wilmington. So Wilmington, they have a max number, but then they also say you can't exceed more than 50% of your principal building. That way, if your principal building is 2,000 square feet and you can have a 1,200 square foot ADU, no, you can't. You can only have 1,000 square foot ADU because of that extra protection. So it keeps it in proportion to your principal structure. So Wilmington had it and Savannah had it, and so the Planning Commission wanted to include it in their recommendation. So for
I'm
instance,
just trying to think of an example where there's one in town where that's not the case, and I can't think of any.
there may not be very many. It's just an added protection. If you do have a smaller home, it keeps it in proportion to your primary structure.
Okay, I don't know. I don't like to overcomplicate things. That's
Yeah. Mr. Rambo, it has to do with flood resiliency too. You don't want the whole property to be covered and not have good drainage. That's part of what this is about.
No, this is.
I don't read it like that. I'm reading it like you have a small house. Let's say you have a really small house, then you would have to have a smaller ADU. If somebody has a giant house, they can build up to the maximum amount of ADU.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
Simply a protection.
If they can meet all their other
Protection for what?
standards.
Flood resilience.
It's not.
I'm sorry, but that's what the answer is.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the. Oh, Ms. Hyatt, did you have more?
We still have the maximum lot coverage in place in this area. We do. Yeah, we have
The 40.
impervious surface, and I'm going to discuss that in the next agenda item. Yeah.
All right. Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of the Planning Commission recommendations with the addition of no taller than the principal building in Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District and rest of town. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails 2-2.
I'd like to make another motion.
Okay.
I would like to make the same motion as Mr. Chapman, except I would like to simplify it and get rid of the 40% rule.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails 2-2. So is this something that we then go to council with zero recommendation?
Yeah, and let me just clarify that when this went to the commission, this was for discussion. There was not a public hearing held. So I anticipate maybe taking the discussion to council, getting further direction, and then we would still have to hold the public hearing to change the code at
And
the
then
commission.
it will come all the way back.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make this big.
So.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding demolitions and rebuilds in older neighborhoods.
All right, same with the last discussion. The commission asked for some numbers so they could kind of look at a snapshot of what's going on. So from 2023 to current, in the Old Village Historic District and that expanded protection area, there was 83 demolitions, and that's for a primary structure. 140 additions and 63 new builds and rebuilds. The topic also came up about our criteria for a historic structure, and it is a 50-year criteria. And so we did a snapshot of old Mount Pleasant. So we did not do Shimwood and the Groves. We just did outside of the Old Village up to Coleman Boulevard. And about half the homes there meet the 50-year criteria. So we just wanted to answer that question because it had been asked, how many homes in there are actually eligible?
to be historic. And again, that's eligible. So you would still have to have a survey done, and there would have to be something deemed historic in order for it to actually be designated as historic. But about half the homes in there do meet the 50-year criteria. So we talked about what controls a rebuild or a build on a lot, and we have all of our development standards. We have impervious surface, lot coverage, height, setbacks, and then the trees and the tree protection zones. Demolitions, again, we talked about that 50-year age. There's really nothing to prevent the demo of a home unless it's deemed historic, and it's right now in the Old Village Historic District. We are looking at some other things with the commission as far as strengthening our Chapter 155, our land development regulations. We're looking at some ways that we can perhaps tighten the restrictions on subdividing land. We're seeing there that you have some of those lots that may be a larger lot with a small older ranch on it, and it's beneficial for a new buyer to tear that down so they can subdivide that lot and get 2 new larger single family homes out of it. So we talked about that. That's definitely something that we've seen over the last 10 years in the old Mount Pleasant area. But we're looking at that right now through Chapter 155, which is our land development regulations, and that's something we're going to continue to explore. New builds, we talked about some ways, again, when you get to the mass, size, and scale, we talked about 40% impervious surface. That could be reduced, and then we talked about expanding the building area ratio into Old Mount Pleasant. So going through some different options with the Planning Commission, their only recommendation at this point was to expand BAR, which is currently been in place for many years in the Old Village. They wanted to expand it into Old Mount Pleasant. They did not want to expand it into all of neighborhood preservation overlay. They didn't want to include Shimwood or the Groves, but they did want to do it all the way up to Coleman Boulevard. And so that was their only recommendation at this point while we look at some other things, again, with our land development regulations. And again, BAR is a maximum. It really kind of maximizes the footprint of what you can build on your lot. And the recommendation would be just to sort of mimic what we already do in the Old Village. These would not go to the Old Village. This would be part of staff's review. So when we review setbacks, when we review height, we would also make sure that all of the improvements on the lot would not exceed 5,500 square feet. And so that would be just part of our calculations and what we review moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's the recommendation from the commission at this time.
All right. Do we have any thoughts from Yes, Mr. Rambo.
Do we know how many, if this was changed, do we have an approximate guess of how many homes would now be, I can't remember the correct word, non-compliant?
No, we don't. We don't have an idea of how many would be non-compliant.
Because that would make it if this did deem somebody's home non-compliant, that would make it very difficult to do any sort of improvements in the future. Is that wrong, or
it depends? And so what I would look at, number one, is in Old Mount Pleasant, we know there's 2,140 homes or lots, right? We know half of those are newer than 50 years. So that gives us a little bit of a snapshot of maybe how many might be in compliance and maybe how many are not. But I know that when we put in place the impervious surface coverage, so let's say somebody comes in, they're a developed lot, they want to do an addition, and they're at 40% impervious. Well, they have to remove something, or they have to make changes to account for that to stay under the 40%. So with any sort of non-conforming, it would be the same sort of situation. We would look at what you have, what you want to do, and you would have to conform to that new requirement now. And if you think about it, 5,500 square feet, that's a lot. So I could have a 4,000 square foot house, I can have an 850 square foot ADU, and then I can have whatever's left a garage. So it still provides for a lot of buildable space on your lot. And again, that's the requirements of BAR don't matter on your lot size. It's just that 5,500 max. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we just deal
No,
with
you
it with
made me
any
more confused, but
non-conforming
that's
issue.
okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
Ms. Hyatt?
That's more me than you.
No, that's,
I'm I'm in agreement with expanding the area to Old Mount Pleasant, and I do like the idea of applying the 5,500 square foot rule as well in that area. So those are my thoughts to sort of protect. We want to protect the character of that area, so I feel it's one way we can do that.
Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Hyde.
Okay. I guess my question is, why just Old Mount Pleasant? Like, I mean, I don't think it. I actually disagree with this. I think it potentially reduces property values, right? You buy your property and you think you can build what you want on it to the zoning code, and now we're basically forcing you into something that you didn't sign up for. If you do decide to do this later on, right? And if you want to demo and rebuild, and if you're gonna go for it, Old Mount Pleasant, why not the entire old neighborhood overlay district? Why not the Groves and Shenwood and the entire thing? Like, why limit it to Old Mount Pleasant? I just think it's an arbitrary limit. And I think, I don't love, the McMansion phenomenon, but at the same time, some of these old red brick homes are dilapidated, and, if you're spending $1 million plus on a dilapidated 1950s red brick house and you want to tear it down and build something new and nice, I don't think that we should be limiting people's ability to do that. Mr. Rambo?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I was for most of the changes in the previous section, but in this section, I think, and we're some public comments today too, I think what you're really doing is you're punishing the people who have lived in the same home for 30 plus years, the same smaller home. All of their neighbors have been pretty much demoed and rebuilt, or these huge additions, but now all of a sudden, these people that have owned their home for a long time don't have the same rights, and it would hurt their property, but it just doesn't seem very fair. And then I'd also love to get some examples of homes in this area that, like, I'm trying to get a vision of one that doesn't meet the criteria or does. I don't know. I've got some questions there, but generally speaking, I just think it penalizes people that have been in the same house for a long time. It's not fair.
Do you have any further comments, Ms. Hyatt?
I would agree if it was unreasonable what the standards we're suggesting. And when we say why not the other neighborhoods, when you look at that map that you just moved off of, you can see the difference in the lot sizes. Look how tiny these lots are in the old part of town. And when you look at, the Groves, or those lots are nearly a half acre. So I feel that the character of the neighborhood is less impacted than putting, a 6,500 square foot monstrosity on such a small lot. And I mean, if we're willing to protect the historic district, for whatever sentimental reasons, why are we not willing to expand that to all of Old Mount Pleasant? I mean, everybody now calls that the Old Village, even though it's not. So, for me, it's about protecting the character, and I feel the request isn't unreasonable. We're not saying you can't build more than 2,000 square foot house, or you can't tear anything down. Those would be really restrictive. But to me, this is just not very restrictive, and it's a little bit of something we can do to preserve the character of the area. So that's why I'm not against it.
Okay. Is there a motion to come from anyone?
Did you say that they're still working on this at commission, still discussing?
They're looking at something separately, but for this is their recommendation. You may have some other things coming to you later that involves Chapter 155 or land development regulations, but no, for the zoning code, this is what their recommendation.
I just want to hear. So I feel like what I don't want to do is kind of piecemeal it and say, oh, here's one little recommendation, but if there's 2 or 3 other recommendations coming in the next couple of months, it might be better to take an overall look at it and how the different suggestions kind of interplay before we take action on any one specific, if that makes sense.
Okay.
How do we know when they'll be coming back with more?
No, and it's a different ordinance. So I understand what you're saying, but it's a totally different ordinance than the zoning code, and it it wouldn't have anything to do with this. It would have to do with maybe densities and subdivisions. One of the things I know that they're looking at is when you go to subdivide your property, you have certain requirements, and if you don't meet a requirement, you can ask for a land development waiver. They may be looking at getting rid of those waivers or tightening that up. That wouldn't necessarily have any bearing on this, but it's probably not going to be till next year till we really dig into that. But we're happy to hold off. We're happy to do whatever you ask us to do. So,
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we accept the planning commission recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend to full council accepting the planning commission's recommendations. We are in discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
2-2. Motion fails. So this will go to council with no recommendation. All right, moving on to item 7 on the agenda. If there's nothing further to come before this committee, we stand adjourned.
of Mount Pleasant Town Council for our Tuesday, September 2nd meeting. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the August 4th meeting, please.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Item 3 is public comments. If you have a public comment, please come forward, give us name and address. Anyone for public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 4, update on the intersection of Rivertown Parkway and South Carolina Highway 41. I know the neighbors have been asking a lot of questions, and there have been some changes there with the daycare and now the little small kind of bank branch. And so let's see where things stand.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and committee members, happy to give an update on the 41 and Rivertown Parkway intersection. So we have coordinated with Charleston County to utilize some of the SC41 widening funds to purchase and procure adaptive signal technology and detection, which will allow us to start to collect real-time data as opposed to the current loop detection system that's in place today. So as part of that, and in the efforts that we've done already to install the 4-section flashing yellow arrow head, we will be able to, once that equipment is installed in about 2 weeks, be able to quickly look at those volumes to see if they meet the DOT warrants for a protected left turn. I think a lot of the efforts that were completed as part of the US 17 and Lexington and Oakland Market intersection has set a good precedence with the District 6 office for us to implement a time of day plan, which means at certain times of day a protected arrow may be warranted while at others it's not, and so we can be more selective and when we implement that, and those would likely be during the peaks, the AM and PM peak. So once it's installed, we can quickly turn around and conduct that study and make changes as necessary.
All right, so in 2 weeks, what will the neighbors begin to see?
So in 2 weeks, we will have that detection equipment installed and that adaptive processor installed. And there is about a 2-week burn-in period for it to start collecting that data. And at that point, we will be able to conduct that traffic signal warrant. So probably in about 4 weeks is when you would likely see any phasing changes to the intersection. But we continue to monitor it currently and have made some finite adjustments to those periods to address the current traffic signal volumes, just with the timing.
So now it's a looping system that's there, and what we may go to is an adaptive. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. The detection is in ground right now, a loop detection, and we'll have video cameras essentially above. Don't record anything, but just collect the necessary turning volume data.
Okay. And is this equipment that's going in, is that something that's visible that you see? I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah, so driving along Coleman Boulevard or along 17, you can see those cameras essentially. They look like video cameras overhead. This is a span wire system, so on the mast arms on all the 4 corners, you will see basically a video camera mounted up there. That will be the visual indicator for the public.
Got it. And then how long does it take to evaluate the data?
Not but a week for us to look at travel patterns. We're in a time of the year where things are pretty normalized. We're outside of the holiday windows at this point. So traffic will be pretty representative of what we could expect throughout the year. Okay. So about a week to process that and get approval from DOT.
So there's a good chance that next month for this committee meeting, we might be able to draw some conclusions.
Yes, sir.
Given that everything goes according to plan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
No, I was just going to say we're all eager for that left turn signal to be activated, and so it'll be interesting to see what the traffic counts say now that there's some additional businesses in the area. Hopefully, it'll meet those warrants, and we can get that green light activated.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update. Any other questions on that? All right. Thank you very much. Item number 5 is another long-awaited one, and that's the new rectangular rapid flashing beacon road crossing system at Whitesides Elementary School. I don't think that council members and I are going to try to recreate the Abbey Road crossing on Mathis Ferry, but I had a waterworks meeting and I saw that this had been installed, so I just walked over and did it. And the thing that is upsetting is that the very first car, after the beacon started going off, sped right through it. And, Chief, I don't know if that's an enforcement issue. I don't know. Is there a greater penalty if you go through one of those once it's started? I mean, does it have the same legal significance as a traffic signal?
No.
Okay.
It's still at this point the same statutes you have regarding the pedestrian entering the roadway in a safe manner that's for themselves, as well as, you just can't walk out in front of anybody.
Right.
But it's not like a signal. It doesn't have those same protections.
Okay. So we need to let our citizens know when you see that thing blinking, you need to stop.
And we've done some of that. Maybe James was going to mention that, but I'll speak a little bit for the chief. Is regarding enforcement. If they saw something like that, I think they would be an easy thing to pull someone over, remind them what the law is. They want compliance,
right.
Not necessarily a ticket, but we can talk a little bit about the education we've done on it.
Sure.
Yes, sir. So in addition to coordinating with the schools onto how these operate and sort of the standard operating procedure on that and their crossing guards, there is a frequently asked question page that we've developed as part of the pedestrian and bicycle accommodation plan, which the RRFBs fall under, that dictate to the driver and the user on how to use and operate and respect once this is activated. And then in addition to that, we have placed sort of our election style signage that we move from location to location. That includes a QR code to that frequently asked questions page at this location in preparation for folks who may not be aware of that up to this point. And so that's the educational outreach that we've done. In addition to these flashing yellow or these RFB devices on either approach, at least during the school hours, there is still a 25 mile an hour speed limit and school flasher associated with this location for an added benefit to notifying the motoring public that you are entering a high pedestrian zone.
Yeah, and for some reason, that stretch of rifle range, people get up a good head of steam. I mean, it's even hard coming out of Whitesides or Waterworks there, I'm sure, coming out of that Founder's Way right there. When you're coming out of the neighborhood, it's not easy. So every little bit helps. Appreciate y'all getting this in. And when I saw it, I mean, school was back in session and it was there. I think we got it in. Eric, you gave me an update. That was the goal before school started. So great job. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, to show how long this has needed a traffic signal, when work was being done on Founder's Way, installation of all the homes in that neighborhood, I made a requirement that the developers pay for a traffic signal. How long has it been since the study was done for a traffic signal at this intersection?
I believe that warrant study was completed in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, but I can confirm that.
It needed a traffic signal then, even more so with all the traffic coming out of that neighborhood. And while this flashing device is a step forward, as you mentioned, it's not going to do the job of a traffic signal at a school, and it is seriously needed on Rifle Range Road at this intersection for this elementary school.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
We can reperform the warrant. It's been 4 years. Once again, that's a state road. It is our side road, but we can certainly initiate that and start the discussion with the district office, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you very much. And again, hopefully it's still on the books that developer has to pay for the traffic signal.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to thank our transportation engineering department for putting in this RRFB. And especially there's a local resident who I think has been a strong advocate for it for quite some time, and that's Noah Moore, who's probably contacted you many times about it. I know he's thrilled that that the RRFB is there. I spent 6 or 7 years, dropping off kids at Whitesides Elementary. I've heard of some close calls with, people almost hitting our school resource officer who was out there directing traffic. And I think this is another layer of indication to the public that this is a sensitive area with our little kids crossing the street, and I think we'll have some safety benefits. So just wanted to extend my thank you to the department for getting this installed and doing so before the school year started.
Yes, sir.
I'd also like to compliment the department for getting a 15-mile-an-hour sign in at Mount Pleasant Academy before school started. That helps a lot. That was an area that people tend to speed in, both on e-bikes as well as cars. And the folks in the neighborhood are quite appreciative of getting that 15-mile-an-hour sign in to reduce the speed.
All right. Anything else before we move on to e-bikes? Item number 6, update on enforcement of e-bikes and motorbikes. And let's hear from our chief first. And I see that Ryan Giles is also here from Moultrie Middle to update us on the school district's efforts in this area. So, Chief, if you will give us an update.
Certainly. So we continue all of our efforts with the e-bikes. Let me just pull up the stats here. So, so far this year, there's been 13 collisions involving e-bikes with juveniles, 8 collisions with golf carts. This is a stat I just asked to start keeping track of because it seems to be happening more and more. We have 10 instances of failure to stop for blue lights, so kids on e-bikes are running from us. And anytime we see violations, we're taking action. And we also are still continuing to educate children and parents with the e-bikes and those violations. So if there's any other questions, please let me know.
It's, yesterday evening, and this is not a comment on our enforcement. This is a comment on the behaviors of people with them. Taking my niece back to Charleston Airport last evening. It was about 6:30 on Coleman Boulevard on the bridge over Shem Creek, and 3 young males on e-bikes, which we now know are actually mopeds, popping wheelies, doing easily 25 miles an hour, right in the middle of the road. Weren't even near the sidewalk. And I'm sure if we'd had an officer who was there, they would have been easily after them, and I know you would. But we just got to continue to get the message out that this is not safe, and we certainly don't want to be blamed for not having done what we could do to get the message out. And I really appreciate your increased enforcement of this and your reporting every month. It's really helped. I think the public realizes now that the town really is doing something. I don't know what the next steps are, or what you might recommend, given how long have we been increasing this as a focus now? Is this the 3rd or 4th month?
At least.
Yeah, at least. And I know that maybe when we hear from Principal Giles, Assistant Principal Giles with the school, that we'll get an update on what they're thinking. But I think anything would help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Question.
Yes.
We just reopened Pitt Street Bridge, and so I had a question from a neighbor. We have new signs up, and with vehicles that share the lane yield to bikes and pedestrians at the Pitt Street Bridge. We also have another one that says no motorized vehicles beyond this point. And their question is, how does that relate to e-bikes? Are they, for the purposes of enforcement, is that motorized vehicles or not motorized vehicles, or was that really intended for golf cars? And so there's just a point of clarification as to what, and then of course they sent pictures and all the rest, and
right.
Just be helpful to know.
Well, we'll have to clarify that. That's one of the things I was going to say is we need greater clarification with this, probably at the state level. with what is an electric motorcycle, what is a gas-powered motorcycle, and just clarify these things. This has been evolving very quickly. It's very difficult to keep up with. Whether or not an e-bike is considered a motor vehicle, that's one of the things that state law, town ordinance, we need clarity and unity on that.
So stay tuned. Stay
Yes.
tuned as far as back to the individual. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I wonder if that could be cleared up by just the council making a rule, no e-bikes beyond a certain point. That might be the quicker solution to that particular issue.
That's what they have on the local beaches. It says no e-bikes, so no e-bikes of any form. And I maintain, there was a time when the big motors were steam, right? Steam engines and everything. But an engine is an engine. It doesn't matter whether it's internal combustion steam. If it's got an engine in it, it's an engine. If it's got a motor in it, it's a motorized thing as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if it's the legal e-bike, which is 750 watt or 1 horsepower, won't go over 20 miles per hour, or the ones like the ones I saw last evening that we now know are legally mopeds. But a motor is a motor. The same rules apply to Teslas on the roadways as apply to a big old diesel truck. We don't distinguish between how the propulsion happens. It is a motor. So I think motors in parks are not a good idea. What was the do we have the laws on that on Mount Pleasant Way yet, or is that still evolving?
I believe that your current ordinance would be applicable, except I think we intend to prohibit golf carts
right
on that facility,
right,
specifically.
Right. So, Ryan, if you wouldn't mind coming up, would you tell us what the school district is doing, or I don't know if it's district wide or just Moultrie or what? But
yeah, I'll just start from the beginning on how we got to this point. Just running into you guys at the farmers market on a Tuesday. Sounds like it's an issue that's come to your attention, and clearly it has. As far as last May when school let out, it was not something we really had to deal with all day, every day like we do now. So we did write up a policy where we register every bike at the beginning of the year, and we make sure that parents know what type of bike their kid is sending to school. There's about 190 registered bikes at our school. I'd say that's probably on the higher side because of where our school sits, as far as Lang and Cario not sitting right in the middle of a neighborhood. About 50 of those are e-bikes. So the only way I've been able to enforce it now, getting all those registrations, is to really walk bike by bike and see what type of markings are on there. Have just sent a few home and told the kids those are over 750 watts. No matter how it says it was limited, we definitely are getting pushback from parents and kids if they say there's a limiter that limits it to 20. I'm saying, well, your bike still, if you look at the rating, it's 1,000 or it's 1,200 or it's 1,500. And then talking to a local bike shop a couple weeks ago, they said that some of the parents and kids are coming in and asking for e-bikes that'll be 2,000 watts or 2,500 watts, which, yeah, that blows my mind. I guess that would be 3 horsepower. That'd be, like the old go-karts we would only ride in the woods with roll cages. So that really does concern me. So as far as enforcement, we haven't done anything to do like a parent meeting at night where we talk about exactly educating parents, because we have our parent open house this week. So we try not to conflict with that. After we put that out, I believe Lang and Cario just sent the same policy out. I know Lucy Beckham did the same policy, and I just modeled ours after Beckham and Wando, the fact that any kid that drives to school has to register their car first. I know at Beckham that my kids have to take the Alive at 25 course just as a condition of even taking a car to school. So I really modeled it on Beckham, and then I guess they came back and modeled theirs on what the middle schools are doing. It is pretty tough to see the kids riding off campus and having any way to enforce whether they're going over 20 miles per hour. Just because of the staggered dismissal of our school, there's probably 20 to 30 e-bikes waiting at dismissal at our bus exit, which I guess I heard the other day from an unnamed source that's here in the room that, they'll just take up the road like you said you saw on Coleman Boulevard. If there's 10 or 12 e-bikes and they want to spread all the way across both lanes, they'll just do that. I personally find that less dangerous than the kid that's just zooming along and takes a turn too fast and zooms in front of a car and cuts them off. But there's just a new thing every day that we're having to deal with. I'm happy to answer any questions about further how it could roll out or should roll out, but I think that's what we've done so far.
So my first question, I got two. Is there a sticker involved on that on a legal e-bike, 750 watts, 20 miles per hour or less? Are they putting a Charleston County School sticker on it?
Not yet, because I have to verify that the e-bike is even under 750 to put it on.
That's what you read. You're right there with me. So my next was, do they qualify if it's not a legal e-bike? If it's in fact, the next class of bike, if it's a moped, if it's over 750 or goes over 20, do y'all allow them to register that? You don't. Okay.
No, they wouldn't be allowed to have it on campus at all. They could get creative how they do at GDC or over at Bottles and kind of park and ride somewhere else.
Right.
If they want to get creative, that has not happened yet. But no, we wouldn't allow it at all if it's over 750 at all, even if they say they have a limiter at 20 miles per hour. I mean, I would think if you can go up to 20 miles per hour and you have 1,500 watts, I would think you could get there pretty quickly in a dangerous manner. So even the acceleration up to 20 is going to be pretty dangerous. So no, sir, we don't allow those.
Okay. Good to know. Are y'all going to go to a sticker?
We have stickers ready. It's just very hard. I've only found maybe, like I said, there's 50 e-bikes that are registered. On any one day out there, I can only find 2 or 3 that have a very obvious label that shows what type of power it is. They're just, when I talk to, I guess, a bike manufacturer and a bike seller here, they said most of those ones you're seeing that are very difficult to identify, they just order them off of Amazon, and there's no real way to work on them. There's no way to verify the power.
Right.
He said that I would have to get myself and another strong person to somewhat lift up the bike, have the kid turn on his bike, rev it all the way up, and see if it powers way past 20 miles per hour while we're holding the back of their bike up. It would be the only way to verify whether that bike can or cannot go over 20 miles per hour. He said if it goes just flying right past 20, it's obviously illegal. If it kind of slows down but maybe gets up in the 21 to 23 range, then it may have a limiter on it. But again, that would be the only way to verify it from the experts.
Wow. Okay. Because it was going to be an easier solution that if you see a youth on one that doesn't have the sticker, meaning that it's a verified true e-bike, legal for them to be on, everything else, if you see them on there and they don't have the helmet, the lights, what are the other things, that a moped has to have?
You're saying for your enforcement it'd be easier if we had stickered it?
If y'all had a sticker, because I think it's easier for y'all to have them. You have them there. You have them wanting to use them. We would have to open up a whole new program, and people would have to come here.
Yeah.
Since y'all are already doing it. And this is me talking, I don't speak for the chief, but if y'all are already doing it, if you see a sticker on one, must be legal. If not, it's not legal.
If it comes from Moultrie, I will say it's going to be legal because I didn't just get the registration and hand them a sticker because they could sticker it on any bike.
Right.
That is why it's very difficult for me to have stickered any bike because I have not been able to find a way to roll it out and verify the horsepower or wattage or speed. So that's
Do you have any info from other school districts, either in the state or around the country? I'm sure everybody's dealing with this. How are they doing it?
I will say that, when you just keep on doing searches, the literature is kind of way that the town has gone about it, where you just kind of put out some stuff, some general rules. So the rules are very general when you look at how other school districts are looking at it. I haven't seen a way to effectively enforce it. So it's just, they'll put out rules that says e-bikes are not allowed on campus or e-bikes over certain power. A lot of parents think that class 2 means that it's legal, but class 2, even with a limiter, could be I believe 1,000 watts, that would still be illegal in our state. Then it's nice for me to have a cutoff that there shouldn't be any 15-year-olds riding an e-bike yet. You could turn 15 later in the year if you were an overage middle schooler, but right now it should be where I can just, just say e-bikes aren't allowed because you have to be 15.
Right.
But no, I've not seen a clear way that it's handled in an effective way.
And is that number you gave us, is that more than there were pedal bicycles before the proliferation of these e-bikes?
No, actually, we've always had to add some. I just added 6 bike racks last year. I ordered them at the beginning of the school year. They came at the end. We've always had over 150 kids riding bikes on a consistent basis, and at least 150 walking right into the neighborhood or walking one street over to King or the old water tower to get picked up by a parent. So not commuting by car or bus has been pretty popular for my entire time there.
Okay. Councilman.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Mr. Giles for what you guys are doing on your end. One thing that concerns me about e-bikes and the limiters, which I've kind of tried to learn more about this through my kids who are in that middle school demographic and have friends with e-bikes. But those limiters, you disable it basically by snipping a little wire, and then it's wide open, and there's YouTube videos showing you exactly how to do it. And so I do want to commend you for not relying on those limiters because they're easily circumvented or disabled. And so I think it's good that you're sticking to your guns on what a true e-bike is and not letting those mopeds slip in.
And we're all working parents. I understand the pushback. They'll tell me that I've got to get my kid from Moultrie to Lucy Beckham for football practice. I can't stop what I'm doing at 3:30 to come over and pick him up. And so he just rides the e-bike. And I'm thinking that is the worst reason to have a 13-year-old now commuting, not even joyriding, commuting, where he has to get there on time. He's going to be making even worse decisions trying to get there. You know how intimidating a football coach can be. So they're just every side dealing with why they need the e-bikes. And I think that they don't need the e-bikes to get to school.
Ryan, what next steps do you see as you go through the year? You're monitoring it, you're educating, you'll probably have a parent-teacher education, you're working with some of the bike shops. Anything else that you're envisioning doing, or the other
my
schools?
next step, yes, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Mr. Tinky. My next step 100% is to have some way to verify that you are under 700 at or under 750 watts before you get the sticker. And I think that's going to have to be with some parent involvement because unless I, pull one bike and then walk down to English class and pull you out and have you verify it, my kids are teenage boys. I wouldn't want them pulled out of class for that or having to interact with the assistant principal for that. I would want it somewhere that I had helped them through that as a parent. So that has to be the next step so that we can even have a stickered policy of enforcement, is just having them kind of walk through a checkpoint and say this bike is legal, or walk through and you eye to eye say, leave that bike at home. That's not a legal bike. So that's on us to get that done.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for doing what you're doing, number one. But you're exactly right. The parent has got the ultimate responsibility to help you do this. And to have that child in a major accident, you may not have that child tomorrow. And that's the key that the parent needs to understand. Not just that they can get to football practice, but that they will be able to play football, period.
And this coming from a point of last year in, October, we had a kid riding a regular bike one street behind Moultrie, hit by a car. He did cruise through a stop sign and not stop, and the other car really couldn't stop. It ran right over him, and
I remember
that student, is going to have lasting effects on the skin that should have been there for the rest of their life because of that one not making the decision.
Wow. Thank you so much, not just for this, but for all you do. I see you over there on Tuesdays at the farmer's market, and it's a big job. I love the whistle you have hanging from your badge,
Oh yeah,
the tools of your trade.
I'm missing recess.
Thanks for coming. We really
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much.
And Chief, thank you as well. All right, so let's get ongoing projects. Item 7.
Yes, sir. So happy to update this. I will mention on September 13th at the Marion Brown Recreation Center on Wilden and Royal, there is a bike safety rodeo at 11 a.m. That's is again another educational opportunity to engage with the public. As far as other transportation projects, we have submitted our 2025 SS4A, which is under review, and we should be hearing back in December. That's along Whipple and the Lucy Beckham corridor there for safety improvements, both bike and vehicular. We are still waiting to execute the CRP grant with SCDOT for flashing yellow arrow and detection upgrades for across the town. We are still reviewing the US 17 Houston North Cut left turn lane analysis for removals of left turns at that intersection and pushing folks to the frontage road. We did receive a confirmation from Charleston County through their TST review that we had our Wingo Way US 17 on-ramp project selected. This is a pedestrian and vehicular intersection improvement at US 7 or Wingo Way and the US 17 on-ramp close to Wonders Way and the Waterfront Park, which will include a safer pedestrian crossing, better delineation of the lanes turning onto the ramp, and then an RRFB device and mid-block crossing installed over to the Tides apartments. Our projects are still up for the CTC component under review, and we should be hearing back soon on those. We talked a little bit earlier in the presentation about the US 17 in Oakland Market and Lexington Drive time of day changes. Those showed a significant reduction in near miss and recorded accidents at the intersection with that implementation of protected only during those peak periods. We are still continuing to monitor that and we'll provide updates as things progress and are changed. We did receive last week the encroachment permit for the changes at the Mathis Ferry Road at Wingo Way from SCDOT. So we're engaging with our signal contractor to confirm that the price to implement those changes is still accurate since it's been a few months, and we'll work to implement that quickly. We did complete the design and permitting of the National Drive right turn lane project, and that is one that we are actively engaging with and pursuing with Charleston County for this year's CTC implementation due to the leftover funds from the design component and the need for that project. And then the Long Point Road slip lane, we are addressing final DRT internal comments and hope to put that project out to bid in early October. And that'll basically mirror the exact same that's on the eastbound approach of Long Point to 526. And then lastly, Toller's Cove update. We did work with our public service department who moved quickly to install some pedestrian scale stop signs at this point. And we're continuing to investigate pavement markings, additional signage, or other technologies that might be implemented at that particular intersection to warn bicyclists and motorists of potential conflict in the area.
Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman.
Yes, sir. I asked the question when we discussed it last month about the ownership of that road. It's a private road. Are we getting any assistance from whoever is the responsible party for that private road?
So for the implementations that were just made, i.e. the pedestrian scale stop signs, that is all within the DOT's right-of-way of Ben Sawyer Boulevard. And so we did receive approval from the District 6 traffic engineer for those improvements. But certainly as we continue to investigate other implementations, if it should be a change onto the private side, then we'll engage with the community for any kind of cost sharing or input or permissions to pursue those improvements.
I only ask that because in the event of need for brush cutting or tree cutting or trimming or whatever, that really needs to be handled by the private owner, so that we don't get accused of destroying the beauty of their entryway.
Understood. And we do have a code enforcement policy in place that we've used in other site distance issue when the vegetation is on private property, that our ordinance and state DOT requirements allow us to recommend the removal of that at the cost of the owners, or by ultimately our public service department or a contracted vendor.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
And then moving on to additional updates. So we have executed our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant from 2023 officially with USDOT. So we do have the green light to pursue those access management, non-motorized enhancement projects and intersection upgrades, with a deadline to complete design and implementation on December 31st, 2029. So a number of different projects varying in scale and scope, with the largest being these access management projects, i.e. landscape medians and turn restrictions, similar to the Coleman Boulevard revitalization project, although that project contained a much larger drainage component. These are more surface improvements. Around 8 to 9 miles of Mount Pleasant Way, either associated with those access management projects or specifically funded through the non-motorized enhancements, including Mathis Ferry Road and Rifle Range Road from Bragg Drive to Ben Sawyer Boulevard. An upgrade of about 6 or so CARTA bus stop locations, or stops to bus stops, and then additionally approximately 8 pedestrian intersection improvements with RRFB devices. And then, of course, a slew of intersection upgrades, including the intersection of Coleman Boulevard and Chuck Dolly, with the removal of that right turn slip lane and consolidation to a safer right turn at the intersection, as has been previously pursued through the Mobility Action Plan. Happy to elaborate on any of these individually. And of course, we're just beginning the process of developing scope and fee with our on-call consultants. So depending upon the project, I'd say anywhere between 6 months to 18 months of design before we get into construction. All of these projects will additionally have public meetings and are required to go through the NEPA process, being federally funded.
Great.
No questions. I'll move on to Billy Swales. So we did just receive word this morning from DNR that we have progressed significantly in their final permitting process, as well as with the other permitting agencies, and are on track to have a bid this month. We have everything in line ready to go when that final permit is approved in a week or so. We anticipate again, putting that out to bid immediately, with hopefully coming back to potentially a BNP, an award in November, if not, then awarding in December. So looks like construction may begin this year, likely the beginning of next year due to the holidays and things like that. But we'll, again, take it step by step with those particular permitting and milestones. Park West Boulevard at Stockdale Roundabout. This is at right-of-way level design plans. It has been submitted to the design review team internally, and we have received comments. So our consultant, Mead & Hunt, will begin addressing those. Again, I anticipate with the right-of-way acquisition needs for this project, which is really associated with the Mount Pleasant Way components along Park West Boulevard, Park Avenue Boulevard, and Carolina Park Boulevard, that we're likely about 8 to 10 months out from having this project ready for bid, but it is moving along nicely. A lot of good community feedback from our interactions with the HOAs associated with these areas. All American Boulevard, both phases 1 and 2 are essentially complete, except for some landscaping and some minor punch list items, including some drainage on phase 2 that needs repair. But we are working to open these roadways here. Again, we will have more information on a meeting with the contractor Gulfstream this week on when that anticipated opening date is, but I would say within 30 to 45 days. Shim Creek Bridge bike lanes. You may have seen that the Dominion has installed the new Shepherd style lighting along this to mirror what was installed in the Coleman Boulevard revitalization project. And all work has been complete except for the resurfacing. Of course, over the past number of weeks, we've had a lot of rain. And with our contract coming out, the county's contract, and DOT all having major resurfacing contracts that were recently awarded, it's really kind of a supply and demand issue from the asphalt plants on when they can get those things that are in the queue serviced. So we do again have a slight delay on when the final resurfacing of this will occur, and we're working and pushing our contractor to have it done this month, which is his anticipated completion time frame. But otherwise everything is open. The pathway and new handrail are installed, and everything's operating smoothly. So we will continue to push the contractor.
Sidewalk and handrail look really good.
Thank you. It was meant to mirror what was at the boardwalk section, so kind of seamlessly integrated, and also helps with erosion control on that downslope to those commercial areas.
As you can see in the picture, it looks a lot more rustic and inviting, more like a park than the old stuff did. So.
516 Coleman. So this project is out to bid. We will be opening the bid here in 3 days, and then begin the review of those bid submittals, and likely be back in October for a B&P approval for that project, which includes the relocation of that large oak tree.
And can we be real careful to get the public word out that the tree is being relocated, not cut down?
Yes, sir. We can certainly make an extra effort to inform the public of what's occurring with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Anton, since that was a lot of care was done to maintain that, what was the approximate cost of that? So it shows that we really cared about it and we're doing the right thing.
So the cost to prune the tree, I believe, was around $20,000 to do that, as well as water it in the interim. We've got a temporary meter with the Mount Pleasant Waterworks there. I don't know the final cost until the 5th on what contractor will place on that, but I can certainly get you what our engineer estimate was. It was not a small amount of money associated with the relocation.
Right.
Thank you.
And then lastly, we do have some Mount Pleasant Way sections. We were unfortunately unsuccessful in our raise/build grant from 2025. We did just hear back a week or two ago on that. But we have developed, in coordination with our GIS department, a nice interface map that's uploaded onto the homepage that you can see active segments, their starts and finishes, their estimated time of completion. So All American Boulevard, obviously, that trail's tied to that project. Some of the major highlights I'll touch on: the Kinney Mile Trail. Still working through the last bit of right-of-way. The design is complete and permitted, and still anticipating a fall-winter bid for that project. And the other really 3 major projects that are about to go out to bid are the Scanlonville Praise House Trail, Mathis Ferry Trail, and the Scanlonville Praise House Parklet, all of which will be placed out to bid shortly. I would anticipate this month. And then some other ones that are under the works. I mentioned the Park Avenue Boulevard and Carolina Park Boulevard trails tied to the roundabout project at Park West. And then the most recently awarded TA set-aside funds for the Isle of Palms Connector Trail, which design has begun on that project. But happy to elaborate on any of these if there are questions.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Not a question, but just a comment that I received from residents of Fiddler's Marsh. They are, I guess, having some issues exiting their neighborhood. It's very difficult to see the traffic coming on Island View Drive due to some residents parking very close to the corner. They suggested a 4-way stop. I'm not sure that the traffic would warrant that, but it may be a simple fix with some pavement markings to encourage people to park further away from that corner. So just passing that along to you for your consideration.
Yes, sir. We can certainly investigate.
Yep.
Was there any, this morning, Erkman was on the agenda for bids and purchases. Are there any stop signs or any type of calming devices being envisioned there based on the investigation at Erkman where the new pool complex is going in?
So as part of that sidewalk design, we intend to internally reinvestigate the need for an all-way stop at that location. Our previous efforts showed that it fell far short of those requirements. So we will pursue that sidewalk expansion, and likely when that proposed pool development is complete and fully functional, we'll relook at with that increase in volume, should it meet those warrants, those DOT requirements.
Thank you.
And then also on that approach too, we are looking to install a radar feedback sign. It is on the entrance of the neighborhood, similar to that along Simmons and Wilden and McCants and Center Street.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. That's been several months. It's not a part of that project, but we'd made that decision to go ahead and move forward in that direction. And I think it's probably already designed, so it should be forthcoming, but we can give you an update on the schedule.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Is that it for the update?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you all very much. Very thorough. As you can see, we got a lot of things going on. I don't remember an update quite this long and detailed with so much action going on. So we really appreciate all that y'all are doing.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further before this committee, we stand adjourned.